Chapter 1050. If he died in battle, then it was because his skills were inferior. But Shang Tianfeng's methods were too despicable. Using a child to threaten others to not fight back was shameless to the extreme. It was a perversion of human nature, a loss of morals. That Shang Tianfeng is a pervert. This person must be killed. Wu Lingfei's face was full of coldness. Children were the future, the flesh and blood of parents. Using children to threaten others was unacceptable to all practitioners. There will be a day when this matter will be resolved. Knight Sorrow nodded. He had not been by his parents' side since he was young. Knight Sorrow longed for the warmth of a family. After seeing his parents and feeling their love, he could understand what children meant to their parents. 2 months passed peacefully. Bei Xing brought the sloppy greedy wolf king to Knight Sorrow's courtyard. Bei Xing was still holding a food box and a jar of wine. "Greetings, Lord King." Knight Sorrow and the others cupped their hands towards greedy wolf king. "No need to be so polite. You are my junior sister's friends. Just call me Brother Greedy Wolf." Greedy Wolf said with a smile. "My third senior brother stopped that idiot Zhang Wuzue." After he calmed down, he went back to look for the Zhangyan monarch. Bei Xing recounted what had happened. "Let's not be polite. I heard from my junior sister that you like to drink. I like to drink too. I don't have any other hobbies in my life except drinking. During this time, for my junior sister's good wine, my legs almost broke from running. The outside of Nine Heavens Pagoda is not safe. There are 2 kings in the Zhangyan sect waiting there." Greedy Wolf King recounted the situation he had investigated this time. "Then I won't be polite. This is the wine brewed by my 6th senior sister. It is still different from the wine of Tian Xing Lu. Try it." Knight Sorrow took out 2 jars of wine and placed them on the table. Greedy Wolf King rubbed his hands, opened one jar, and poured out a bowl. After sniffing it, he raised his head and drank it. "Good wine, strong enough. I like it." Knight Sorrow smiled and opened the other jar, drinking a bowl with Greedy Wolf King. Bei Xing and the other girls also served the dishes. Soon, more than a dozen jars were consumed by Knight Sorrow and Greedy Wolf King. "I can't. If I drink any more, I'll faint. You and I have the same temperament. I'll come find you another day." Greedy Wolf King stood up and rubbed his blurry eyes. After sending off Greedy Wolf King and North Star, Knight Sorrow came back and let out a sigh of relief. Greedy Wolf King's alcohol tolerance is really not bad. If I hadn't practiced it when I was young, I would have collapsed today. Haha. Today's custom-made weapon, you have finished refining it. Go and rest. Xueshi looked at Knight Sorrow and said. She knew that Knight Sorrow was very tired. Knight Sorrow's 3 wives weren't around. Xueshi wasn't Knight Sorrow's wife, but she did fulfill her duty as a wife. You guys too. It's not easy being here with me. Let's all get some rest. Knight Sorrow nodded and returned to his bedroom. It's really too difficult. He has to shoulder everything. Wu Lingfei sighed. There was really no one who could help Knight Sorrow now. Zhu Jiuyun also shook her head helplessly. She wanted to help Knight Sorrow and try to comprehend the will of heaven and earth. However, the chances of her doing so were very low. There were many peak saint kings in the heaven mystic world, but there were only half-step kings and kings. Why? Because even if there was a place where the will of heaven and earth manifested, it was still extremely difficult to comprehend. It required talent and comprehension. Zhu Jiuyun was confident in herself, but confidence didn't mean that she would succeed. After a good night's rest, Knight Sorrow got up and waved the sky splitter casually to stretch his muscles. At this moment, Bei Xing came. Her face was filled with excitement. What's the good news? Night Sorrow asked after keeping the sky splitter. There's something. I think someone will come looking for you later. Bei Xing said. How many people are looking for me now? It's only good if you can find him. You've protected him so tightly, so it's not fake. Yi Shan shook his head. He was already used to being searched for. Update, QXN. No, I didn't make it clear enough, Bei Xing said. I think some sovereigns will come looking for you. Sovereign is here. Xueshi, you guys hurry up and pack your things. We have to hurry and leave. Don't bring trouble to Big Dipper King, Night Sorrow said to Xueshi and the other two girls. Oh my god. Don't worry. What did I say? I didn't make myself clear. He's not here to capture you. He's probably here to ask you for a favor. Bei Xing pulled Xueshi back and quickly explained. Monarch is looking for me. North Star, are you sure? Night Sorrow asked in surprise. I'm not wrong, Bei Xing said. According to the current situation, it's most likely that someone will ask you to step forward. Because you are the most powerful Saint King, your chances of success are the highest. What's the situation? Night Sorrow understood that he had been searched all the time. There were some problems with his train of thought. Finally, after listening to Bei Xing's explanation, Night Sorrow understood what was going on. It was difficult for sovereigns to improve their strength. If they wanted to improve further, they needed to control the power of heaven and earth. In other words, they had to control a part of heaven and earth. However, no one in the Nine Firmament World Group could do it. Since they couldn't break through, they had to find ways to improve their strength from other aspects. Refining the soul and body was the way to go. Currently, the most accomplished soul refiner was Sovereign Xin Shao. This was also the reason why he could shock the Nine Firmament World Group and make the other sovereigns admire him. Now, the sovereigns' opportunity had come, but they couldn't do it themselves. This opportunity was the appearance of the Soul World in the Nine Firmament World Group. This was the name of the Nine Firmament World. Normally speaking, it was called the Boundless Soul World. The Boundless Soul World had the best resources for refining the soul cultivation liquid. The soul cultivation liquid was a special existence. It was similar to the origin of space and the world, but its form was different and it didn't have intelligence. Sovereign Xin Shao had once obtained the soul cultivation liquid. When Sovereign Zi Shao hadn't entered the King realm, he had helped him obtain it. Because the Boundless Soul World rejected cultivators above the King realm, only those below the King realm could enter. In fact, all the space worlds rejected cultivators above the King realm. King realm controlled the will of heaven and earth and had the ability to destroy space worlds. As long as it was a formed space world, it would reject King realm. When Gong Yanglai had planned to enter the Nine Firmament World, it was also because he felt that the origin of the Nine Firmament World was broken and there were no more world rules. This soul cultivation liquid is very important to the sovereigns. If the sovereigns want to get it, the people they send out are not good enough. That's very important. Bei Xing explained. Who doesn't want the treasure if it's not important to them? Wu Lingfei said. Wu Lingfei was a little disgusted to let Night Sorrow fight for other people's opportunities. No, if you're not a sovereign realm cultivator and don't control more than 90% of the will, using the soul cultivation liquid is asking for trouble. The soul cultivation liquid will directly annihilate the user's soul, Bei Xing said. Chapter 1051. Let's not talk about the king's subordinates. There must be quite a number of peak holy kings and half-step kings. If they form a team, their battle prowess won't be weak. They might not necessarily come looking for me, Night Sorrow said. If forming a team can solve the problem, then would the use of an expert be obvious? In the Boundless Soul World, if you meet a strong half-step king or beginner king, won't you be wiped out? Of course, this depends on your choice. Regarding the boundless soul world, my knowledge is limited, North Star said. Let's meet Lord Big Dipper King and see what he has to say. Knight Sorrow was not a hothead who had just entered the Jianghu. He wanted to hear Big Dipper King's opinion. He felt that with Big Dipper King's character, his opinion should be honest. North Star nodded and brought Knight Sorrow to Big Dipper Manor to meet Big Dipper King. When Knight Sorrow arrived, Big Dipper King and Big Dipper King were drinking tea and chatting. You're here. Sit. Big Dipper King waved his hand at Knight Sorrow. After Knight Sorrow cupped his hands and sat down, he explained the purpose of his visit. I've guessed it. North Star must have told you about this. As for your opinion, I really can't say. There are pros and cons, so let's talk about the cons first. Danger. It's very dangerous. It's just like the no territory you've been to before. It's much more dangerous than that because there are King Realm natives there. There are definitely more of them than there are in the no territory, Big Dipper King said to Knight Sorrow. I've thought about this before. Effort and reward are directly proportional. The advancement of a cultivator is a test of the heavenly Tao. It doesn't make sense to be able to obtain heaven-defying resources so easily. Knight Sorrow nodded. As for the danger, he was mentally prepared. Then let's talk about the benefits. The characteristics of the boundless soul world are the same as that of the boundless soul world. It's an aboriginal world, which means that the civilization of the cultivators there is very low. The cultivators who are successful are all talented demon beasts. In this case, there will be more resources. Also, let's talk about the key soul cultivation liquid. Every drop of soul cultivation liquid is a treasure that monarchs yearn for even in their dreams. Last time, Purple Firmament Monarch only managed to obtain 3 drops before he was chased away by King of the Boundless Soul World. Because he had a life-saving method, he was able to return alive. Northern Dipper Monarch analyzed the benefits of the soul cultivation liquid for Knight Sorrow. 3 drops. Since we're here, why didn't we destroy the nest? Knight Sorrow was confused. Northern Dipper King shook his head and explained the reason. The soul cultivation liquid was produced by the Boundless Cliff in the Boundless Soul World. There was a special place at the bottom of the Boundless Cliff where the soul cultivation liquid would drip down. If it was not collected at that time, it would seep into the ground and be absorbed by the Boundless Cliff. The soul cultivation liquid could not be used by those below the monarch realm. However, the spirit chi it emitted was something that some cultivators yearned for. In addition, the Boundless Cliff absorbed spirit chi and was a cultivation paradise. There would definitely be high-level cultivators guarding it. Hee hee. It's really difficult. You have to think carefully. Of course, if you obtain the soul cultivation liquid, you'll be rich. Northern Dipper King said. At that time, you'll have the soul cultivation liquid in your hands. It won't be a problem to exchange it for cultivation resources. You can even say that you'll gain the monarch's favor. Northern Dipper King nodded. I do need special resources. Knight Sorrow thought for a moment and said. What resources do you need? Let me see if I have them. At this time, Black Heaven Monarch, who was wearing a brocade robe, appeared in the hole. Northern Dipper King and Northern Dipper King stood up and bowed. Knight Sorrow and Northern Star also cupped their hands and bowed. The monarch was a big shot. He had cultivated to this level and had put in a lot of effort. He had to be respected. I need a king-grade teleportation crystal. Knight Sorrow directly stated his request. King-grade. Hee hee. Do you know what a king-grade teleportation crystal is? It can be used to teleport across worlds. It can even be done across a few worlds. If it's not big enough, you'll need 2 pieces. Black Heaven Monarch was stunned and said. The cultivators in my hometown can't get out. Therefore, I want to set up a teleportation array in the mysterious sky world. Night Sorrow said. Your reason is very good. Originally, I planned to help you solve some problems after you get the soul cultivation liquid. However, you want a king-grade teleportation crystal. This is equal. Black Heaven Monarch said. I have to solve the problem I caused. If I'm lucky enough to get the soul cultivation liquid, Lord Monarch can give me a pair of king-grade teleportation crystals. Night Sorrow said. Some problems could be solved slowly. However, the king-grade materials were not easy to get. Therefore, Night Sorrow had his own choice. Okay. I only have one. I'll find a way to get you another one. The rest is up to you. I can guarantee that no other king grade will attack you when you enter and leave the boundless soul world. Black Heaven Monarch nodded. When do we leave? I'll wait for Lord Monarch's orders. Night Sorrow said. There's still some time. I'll come and pick you up. Black Heaven Monarch nodded. Then, Night Sorrow and Bei Xing left the hall and returned to the mansion behind the Sage Pavilion. Night Sorrow, you can ask for other things, Bei Xing said. Other problems can be solved as I become stronger. However, the king-grade teleportation crystal is too hard to get. Night Sorrow did not regret his decision. Then Wu Lingfei and the others told Bei Xing about the situation. Wu Lingfei and the others did not say anything. They understood Night Sorrow's decision. At the same time, in the hall of the Big Dipper Villa, Black Heaven Monarch and Big Dipper King were talking. This little guy is really giving me a hard time. I only have one king-grade teleportation crystal. Monarch No Beginning should have one too. However, if he wants to trade for it, he'll have to pay a high price. Black Heaven Monarch shook his head. In his heart, he doesn't put his own matters first. The development of his hometown is the most important. I admire him for that, Big Dipper King said. Of course. Besides, if I don't agree, someone else will come and ask him. It's not right to ask a junior for help. Black Heaven Monarch nodded. Then, Black Heaven Monarch told Big Dipper King that no matter which faction the king was from, they would be expelled from the Big Dipper city. In other words, Night Sorrow had to protect them openly. Of course, no one knew that Night Sorrow was in Big Dipper City. Only a limited number of people knew about it. Night Sorrow also began to prepare for the upcoming battle. He knew what happened the last time he went to No Weave. This time, it would be even worse. Wu Lingfei and the others were worried. However, they could only support Night Sorrow at this time. As for Zhu Jiuyun's request, Yi Shang directly rejected it. He regretted bringing Zhu Jiuyun in last time because the risk was too great. Chapter 1052. Half a month later, Big Dipper King arrived at the villa and brought Night Sorrow to Big Dipper Villa. Alright, we can set off now. I'll send you to the boundary barrier of Boundless Soul World, said Lord Xian Tian, who was waiting at Big Dipper Villa. Thank you, Lord Monarch. Night Sorrow nodded at Lord Xian Tian. Actually, I'm quite conflicted about asking you to sacrifice your life for me, Lord Xian Tian said to Night Sorrow. Monarch, you're thinking too much. We're just taking what we need, Night Sorrow said. Lord Xian Tian nodded. Then let's set off. We have a team in Tianxian World. Do you want to come along? No need, I can do it myself. Lord Sovereign King, I'll have to trouble you to take care of my companions. Yi Shang cupped his hands towards Beidou Sovereign King. Without waiting for Big Dipper King to speak, Lord Xian Tian promised that no one could touch Night Sorrow's friends before the matter in Boundless Soul World was settled. With Lord Xian Tian's promise, Night Sorrow was relieved and left Big Dipper City with Lord Xian Tian. After a few teleportations, Night Sorrow and Lord Xian Tian arrived at a relatively barren small space world in the Nine Heavens world. In front of the space barrier of the small space world, Night Sorrow saw many people. The monarchs he saw last time were all there, and there were people behind each monarch. Seeing Night Sorrow, Monarch Seven Rains nodded at Night Sorrow with a kind smile. Night Sorrow saw Long Jin behind Monarch Hylon. Yi Shang, we meet again. Long Jin's face was filled with a warm smile. Night Sorrow cupped his fists and returned the greeting. He knew that Long Jin was also a soul avatar. This Great One will make things clear first. Normally, when you fight with Night Sorrow, this Great One will not interfere if it is within the rules. However, this time, this Great One is the one who invited Night Sorrow out. If anyone dares to make a move on him at this time, this Great One swears that I will not rest until one of us is dead. There are no rules to speak of, the mysterious Sky Monarch said as he looked at the Tsangyan monarch coldly. The Tsangyan sovereign snorted coldly and turned his head away. He knew that this was not the time to go against the mysterious Heaven Sovereign. The mysterious Heaven Sovereign was definitely not joking around. Because no one was willing to engage in a life and death struggle. Night Sorrow didn't say anything either. He could tell that some people were just bullying him. If they really met someone powerful, they wouldn't dare to say anything. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Qing Yin and Hei Feng behind No Beginning Monarch. In the profound heaven world, it was normal for cultivators with high status to have soul avatars. If Chen Bai didn't come, it probably meant that he didn't have a soul avatar or that his soul avatar's level wasn't high enough. Night Sorrow then nodded towards Qian Qiangwei and Qian Ren behind Qian Zhenyu and greeted them. Qian Ziwei's original body was cultivating in the Nine Heavens Tower. Since she didn't have a soul avatar, she naturally wouldn't come. The mysterious Sky Monarch brought Night Sorrow to the other side and said, "Wait a moment. I still need some time. Make a soul crystal from your soul avatar for this Great One." Night Sorrow nodded and made a soul crystal. After waiting quietly for 2 days, the mysterious Sky Monarch told Night Sorrow that it would be ready soon. After 2 years, he had to come out. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to come out. Take a look, version 4. Chapter J. Section 1. The Boundless Soul Plane was even more complicated than the Boundless Territory. It took a long time for it to appear. It could even be said that it couldn't be calculated because many years had passed. There were only 2 recorded appearances, and the lowest was millions of years. Night Sorrow prepared for a big battle. After entering, it was inevitable that there would be a big battle between people from different factions. However, the mysterious Sky Monarch's next words made Night Sorrow realize that his thoughts were wrong. After entering the Boundless Soul Plane, everyone would be affected by the spatial laws. Everyone would appear in different areas, so the possibility of a battle was low. There was no way to mark the exit, so the mysterious Sky Monarch gave Night Sorrow a disc with a pointer on it. "This Great One has a magnetic stone on me. This pointer will always point to my location. When you want to come out, just follow the guidance of the magnetic stone array disc," the mysterious Sky Monarch said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow put away the array disc and nodded. All the king's arrangements were the same. The other people who had all entered the spatial treasure. Now, only one person from each faction was outside. The rest had entered the spatial treasure, which meant that the team situation was still there. "Little brother Night Sorrow, are you really not coming with us?" Qian Qiangwei, who was the only one left behind Qian Zhenyu, asked Night Sorrow again. "No need. I can do it myself. This way, the chances are relatively higher." Night Sorrow looked at Qian Qiangwei apologetically. If it were any other time, Night Sorrow might have followed Qian Qiangwei. However, he couldn't do so now. He had an agreement with the mysterious Sky Monarch. If he followed Qian Qiangwei, it would be fine if he didn't get the soul cultivation liquid. Then you must be careful. Qian Qiangwei didn't understand why Night Sorrow didn't follow them. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow waved his hand at Qian Qiangwei. After using his energy to isolate her from probing, he took out 2 bottles of the 7 absolute poison smoke and 2 antidotes. After explaining to Qian Qiangwei how to use them, he returned to stand behind the mysterious Sky Monarch. Sneaky and shameful, the Tsangyan Monarch said as he glanced at Night Sorrow. I'm not shameful, but I want to save my face, Night Sorrow replied coldly. Brat, do you want to die? The Tsangyan Monarch waved his sleeves, his face filled with killing intent. You've wanted me dead for a long time, haven't you? Ha ha. Furthermore, did I say anything wrong? Night Sorrow wasn't afraid of the Tsangyan Monarch at all. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, there was no need to save his face. As for safety, the mysterious Sky Monarch was there. Enough. Tsangyun, send someone to the mysterious Sky World to kill a Saint King. I will tolerate you, but don't step on my bottom line. The mysterious Sky Monarch stood in front of Night Sorrow. Alright, you can enter now. Let's see who's stronger and who's lucky. The Purple Firmament Monarch waved his arm, tearing apart the space and sending a man behind him into the boundless soul world. Following that, the other monarchs sent their people in one after another. It's up to you. The mysterious Sky Monarch waved his arm, tearing apart the space and sending Night Sorrow into the boundless soul world. The space constantly changed. After half a cup of tea's time, Night Sorrow finally calmed down. Shaking his dizzy head, Night Sorrow carefully checked the situation around him. In the boundless soul world, strength was important, but so was luck. If he was unlucky, he might be sent into the territory of a king-level demonic beast and be done for. After checking for a while, Night Sorrow didn't find any danger. There wasn't any pressure, and there weren't any strong energy waves. Night Sorrow took out a jar of wine and pondered. Without a map of the boundless soul world, he could only search in the dark. At the very least, he didn't have a map. It was the mysterious Sky Monarch who didn't have one. It should be said that most monarchs didn't have a map. If there was one, it would be the Purple Firmament Monarch who had entered once. However, this place appeared randomly, and the coordinates weren't easy to determine. Without a detailed map, it was useless. However, Night Sorrow had his own advantages. With the 9 regions world's origin, his perception was strong. As long as he was close to the core of the boundless soul world, he would be able to sense the specific location. After all, the boundless cliff where the soul cultivation liquid was located was equivalent to the world's origin. After calming down, Night Sorrow began to move forward. Chapter 1053. Outside the boundless soul world, the Grey Cloud Sovereign looked at the Black Heaven Sovereign and asked, Black Heaven, how long do you plan to protect him? How long? I haven't thought about it yet. The Black Heaven Sovereign replied coldly. Are you bent on making things difficult for me? The Tsangyan Monarch's eyes were filled with malice. So what if I'm bent on going against you? You're so arrogant now. Are you trying to threaten me? If you continue to spout nonsense, I'll kill every member of the Grey Clouds sect that enters the Sky Profound world. The Black Heaven Sovereign's robes fluttered. He was furious. Black Heaven, you don't have to do that. It's not a big deal. The No Beginning Sovereign took a step forward and stood between the two. No Beginning, it's rare for our Sky Profound world to have such an outstanding young man. Does he really think that we're afraid of him? The Black Heaven Sovereign said. So I'm afraid of you. The Grey Cloud Sovereign was infuriated by the Black Heaven Sovereign's words. You guys are really something. Can't you guys stop for a while? The Purple Cloud Sovereign said helplessly. The Black Heaven Sovereign wants to stop, but some people are too shameless. The Seven Rain Sovereign smiled and said something that made the Grey Cloud Sovereign want to vomit blood. Seven Rain, you and I are irreconcilable. The Grey Cloud Sovereign roared. A glowing battle blade appeared in his hand. At this moment, the Black Heaven Sovereign's sword appeared. The Sea Wave Sovereign also took a step forward. In this conflict, the Seven Rain Monarch could be said to be on the side of the profound sky world. The Black Heaven Monarch could not possibly back down. Furthermore, the Seven Rain Monarch and the Sea Wave Monarch had a close personal relationship. They were as close as sisters. If there was a problem, the Sea Wave Monarch would help without any reason. Come. Grey Cloud, let me see if you have the right to be arrogant. The Seven Rain Sovereign's body was covered in fog. His famous weapon, the Seven Rain Sword, appeared in his hand. Alright, everyone give me some face. There's no need for this conflict. Grey Cloud, you should restrain yourself. This is not appropriate. The No Beginning Sovereign stood out and said. The No Beginning Sovereign did not want to interfere in the Grey Cloud Sovereign's affairs. He also did not like the Grey Cloud Sovereign. However, they were all from the Sky Dome world. He could not watch the Grey Cloud Sovereign get bullied. I'll give Brother Wusher some face today. You're really spoiled. The Seven Rain Monarch took a step back and put away his Seven Rain sword. Monarch Seven Rains sheathed his sword while Monarch Black Heaven and Monarch Sea Billow retreated as well. Monarch No Beginning was not only powerful, but he also had a high reputation. He did not seek fame or fortune and would not reject anyone who asked him for help. No Beginning thanks everyone here. Sovereign No Beginning cupped his fists towards Sovereign Xian Tian and the others. He had no other choice. If it was a real battle, he would not be afraid of anyone. In fact, he would even dare to fight if others joined hands with him. However, there was no way he could fight now. The Tsangyan monarch had gone overboard with his actions, and no one could tolerate it. In addition, if a battle were to break out, he would probably be pulled aside by Sovereign Zi Shao and the others to drink tea. Thus, he would not be allowed to participate. Brother No Beginning, I really do need your help. Lord Xian Tian cupped his fists at Lord No Beginning. Ask for my help. Sure, let's see if I can help. The King of No Beginning nodded. Brother Wusher, you have a king-grade teleportation crystal. It's not that useful. Why don't you give it to me? Brother Wusher, please name your price. Xian Tian Monarch did not hide anything from the other monarchs and spoke his mind. Haha. I also know that you have a king-grade teleportation crystal, Xian Tian. I will give it to you. As for the reward, you can do whatever you want. However, why do you need it? King No Beginning took out a light blue teleportation crystal from his storage ring and threw it to Xian Tian Monarch. I'm asking for a favor from that brat. He doesn't want anything else but a king-grade teleportation crystal. I won't take it for free. This is a heavenly origin stone. Use it as you see fit. Xian Tian Monarch threw a black stone to No Beginning. That was a king-grade teleportation crystal. I understand. I hope you can do it. No Beginning laughed. He knew that this was the price Xian Tian Monarch had to pay for asking Night Sorrow to come out. Brother Xian Tian, you won't be disappointed. Seven Rain Monarch said with a smile. I have this feeling. As for whether it will work or not, that's another story. Xian Tian Monarch was looking forward to it. However, he felt that Night Sorrow's chances were not high. Everyone, just wait and see. Yuan Ling Realm Lord said. Night Sorrow explained to the 9 domain origins to help him investigate. Then, he started to move forward. An aboriginal world with a low cultivation civilization. What it had the most was resources. As Night Sorrow moved forward, he kept collecting materials. Excited. Night Sorrow was very excited. This was because the resources here were abundant. As he moved forward, the materials entered his pockets. As for the direction, Night Sorrow randomly chose it. Currently, he could not determine which direction was the center of the boundless soul world. He could only rely on his luck. Wrong. Night Sorrow was not worried. Even if he went astray and ended up in a spatial barrier, he could just change direction. 2 years was enough. If one's cultivation was low, traveling would be slow and waste a lot of time. Now that Night Sorrow's cultivation was at the half-step king realm, he was good at speed. The time he spent on traveling was not bad. He just needed to collect resources. After a month, something that made Night Sorrow speechless happened. It was as he had expected. He had run to the spatial barrier, which was the edge of the boundless soul world. After taking out a jar of wine and drinking 2 mouthfuls to calm himself down, Night Sorrow made a decision. He would first run around the spatial barrier of the boundless soul world and determine the direction according to the extension of the spatial barrier. Due to the suppression of the spatial turbulence, almost all spatial worlds were circular. This way, there was no force. He could determine the direction of the center by following the spatial barrier. In addition, it was easy to produce spiritual stones near the spatial barrier. Night Sorrow would not be left empty-handed. While flying, Night Sorrow also collected spiritual stones. First release Z. After traveling for a month, he had collected thousands of top-grade spiritual stones and a lot of attribute crystals. Night Sorrow also planned to change direction. He needed to earn resources, but he could not delay business. The main purpose of this trip was the soul-cultivating liquid. Only by obtaining the soul-cultivating liquid could he complete his mission. The King-grade transfer crystal was too important to him and the 9 regions world. After a month of flying, Night Sorrow could already determine the central area of the boundless soul world. While flying towards the central area, Night Sorrow was also very careful. He was not afraid of Saint King-grade monster beasts, but if he encountered a King-grade monster beast, it would be troublesome. If he encountered one that was not good at speed, it would be fine, but if he encountered one that was good at speed, it would be bad luck. Yi Shang was even looking forward to seeing if his original body would wake up from his meditative state. That way, his doppelganger would have the same enlightenment through the soul link, and his strength would soar. If he really entered the Sovereign King realm, then he wouldn't have to worry about his safety. However, this was just Yi Shang's wishful thinking. Chapter 1054. All of a sudden, Night Sorrow felt his hair stand on end. Danger. Night Sorrow knew that this was an intuition before danger. He immediately sent out a spatial rift, entered the spatial turbulence, and then smoothed out the space. Not long after Night Sorrow entered the spatial turbulence, a winged man with tiger skin markings on his face appeared. The man looked around, and at the same time, his nose twitched. Double-winged flying tiger. King-class double-winged flying tiger. Night Sorrow was glad that he had escaped quickly. If he had been any slower, he would have been discovered. If he had been discovered, he would have been hunted down even if he entered the spatial turbulence. After searching for a while, the double-winged flying tiger left. Now that he felt safe, Night Sorrow changed directions and traveled through the spatial turbulence. After traveling 200 miles, Night Sorrow tore open the spatial barrier and returned to the boundless soul plane. Terrifying. The boundless soul plane was very terrifying. Night Sorrow had only left the spatial barrier for a short distance before encountering a king-class monster beast. It could be seen that the number of king-class monster beasts in the boundless soul plane was very large. Night Sorrow felt that there would be a lot of casualties in the boundless soul plane this time. He had the 9-domain origin bead, and his perception and detection were strong, so he could avoid danger in time. However, the others could not. If they encountered a king-class monster beast, they would scatter like birds and beasts. Those who were chased would be unlucky, and those who were not would survive. With the experience of encountering the double-winged flying tiger, Knight Sorrow was very careful when moving forward. He used the 9-domain origin bead and fused his soul power to detect. This way, he could sense danger in advance. Knight Sorrow's soul power was already strong to begin with, exceeding the level of his cultivation level. With the help of the 9 zones origin pearl, his detection and perception abilities were at the level of a monarch. That was why he had been able to discover the double-winged flying sky tiger in advance. In reality, the situation was just as Knight Sorrow had estimated. The origin spirit world had lost half of its forces, and it was the same for the 7 rain world. They were all unlucky enough to charge into the territory of king-level demonic beasts, and the result was that they were slaughtered. The people of the Xian celestial realm were a little better. They didn't encounter any terrifying demon beasts. Thousand Rose greeted everyone. If they encountered any king-level demon beasts, they were to stay close to her and not resist her soul power. This way, she could take everyone into her spatial treasure. Second sister, if we encounter a king realm demon beast, we should scatter and run for our lives. Anyway, everyone has magnetic needles. Even if we don't gain anything, it won't be a problem for us to go back. Qian Yu voiced his confusion. Normally, your strategy isn't wrong. However, Knight Sorrow gave me something. If we encounter a king who isn't particularly overbearing, we might be able to get through 2 difficulties. Thousand Rose looked at her brother and mentioned the existence of the 7 absolute poison smoke. Our brother is very kind. However, I still don't understand why he doesn't want to be with us. I believe he doesn't think we're a burden. There must be other reasons, said Qian Yu. He couldn't figure it out on this matter. There are some things that you can understand if you think about it carefully. He came with the Great Ancestor. In other words, he might have some agreement with the Great Ancestor to be with us. It's fine if he doesn't gain anything, but what if he does? Try to understand him. He's different from us. He has too many people around him to take care of, said Thousand Rose with a sigh. It's not easy. It's really not easy for my brother, said Qian Yu with some emotion. His path of growth is different from ours. His experience are stronger than ours. He has been honed by real blades. If there's one person who survives such an adventure, it will definitely be him. It won't be anyone else, said Thousand Rose. Thousand Rose admired Knight Sorrow's strength. She had been defeated at the first sacred ceremony of 100 realms, while Knight Sorrow had come out on top. This was the difference between them. Second sister is right. We don't have to worry about him. Let's consider our safety first. The water here is too deep, said Qian Yu. Knight Sorrow groped his way forward. There were resources to collect, but he was still very vigilant. No matter what, he kept his soul power spread out to ensure his safety. After collecting some of the main ingredients for the Spirit Enlightenment Pill, Knight Sorrow returned to the Dragon Cauldron. He took out the teapot and brewed a pot of tea. He felt that some special worlds really had to be entered. There was nothing to say about the quantity and quality of the resources. One had to know that the value of a Spirit Enlightenment Pill was equivalent to 3 Saint Spirit Stones. Moreover, there was a price but no market. There would be people who would buy Spirit Enlightenment Pills immediately, but even if you had Saint Spirit Stones, you might not be able to get Spirit Enlightenment Pills. With resources in hand, there was no shortage of Spirit Stones. The path of cultivation would be much smoother. After drinking a pot of tea, Knight Sorrow left the Dragon Cauldron and continued forward. After advancing for 4 hours, Knight Sorrow discovered a special race. It was the Earth Dragon. The strongest among them was a Peak Saint King. You can read it as soon as possible. Originally, Knight Sorrow had no intention of fighting. However, when he was collecting materials, this group of earth dragons attacked him. He could only fight back. The earth dragon's dragon blood was much stronger than the five-clawed pterosaur's dragon blood. It could be used to refine the saint spirit pill. In other words, it was a pill that could increase a saint's cultivation by 1 level. This also required a Saint King alchemist to refine. Killing demonic beasts below the level of a monarch was not difficult for Yishang. After collecting the dragon blood materials, Yishang continued on his journey. As his cultivation increased, Knight Sorrow's temperament changed. He would not kill for no reason, just like this earth dragon. Although Knight Sorrow needed the earth dragon's blood, if the earth dragon did not attack him, he would not take the initiative to kill it. After collecting the materials and moving forward, Knight Sorrow was in a good mood. If there was danger, he would just hide. With the will of space and will of time, an ordinary junior king would not be able to catch up to him. As he moved forward, Knight Sorrow discovered another ore vein and began to dig. Knight Sorrow dug for 5 days. The spirit stones were stored in a few storage rings. If they could not fit, he stored them in the dragon cauldron. Just as Knight Sorrow finished digging the ore vein and was resting for tea, he discovered that something was wrong. A man with green scales on his forehead appeared at the top of the mine. Intermediate King. Knight Sorrow knew that this man's cultivation was at least Intermediate King. With his half-step King cultivation, he could see the cultivation of level 3 King and below. However, Knight Sorrow could not see through this man's cultivation. Stuck in the pit, Knight Sorrow was a little dazed. He did not even have the chance to escape. How could he escape when he was stuck? In a hurry, Yishan swallowed the antidote for the 7 deadly poison smoke. He remembered to take out a bottle of the 7 deadly poison smoke and held it in his hand. Come out and die. The man with the green scales on his forehead roared at the pit. Knight Sorrow did not move. He wanted to seize the opportunity to escape. If he was not calm at this moment, it would cause serious consequences. Come out or not, you will die. The man with the green scales on his head shouted at the pit. Knight Sorrow did not know what this green-scaled king's true form was. There was no way he could fight, so he could only take the opportunity to run. We have no enmity between us. Lord King won't kill me directly, right? Knight Sorrow replied. He wanted to see if this would work. Chapter 1055. There's no point in talking so much. I don't need a reason to kill you. Get out here. The green-scaled king roared at the cave. Then come and kill me. Sorrow raised his protective shield and crushed the bottle of 7 poison smoke with his left hand. At this moment, Knight Sorrow's protective shield had a special energy. It was the energy of the antidote to the 7 extinction poison smoke. It isolated the smoke from the protective shield. At this moment, the green-scaled king also entered the pit and rushed towards Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow grabbed some sorrow with his right hand and threw it behind him as he quickly retreated. The green-scaled king rushed forward and a green bone blade slashed towards Knight Sorrow. The pit was very narrow and not suitable for fast movement. However, the underground rock couldn't withstand Knight Sorrow's spatial energy slash. As he retreated, Knight Sorrow slashed towards the ground and quickly used Sky Splitter. He wanted to open up a path of retreat and a path of survival. At this moment, the green-scaled king's body trembled and he stopped moving forward. His protective shield was stained with a green light. That was the poison of the 7 extinction poison smoke. The green-scaled king stopped chasing, but Knight Sorrow was still running. He knew that the 7 extinction poison smoke was powerful, but it definitely couldn't threaten the life of a mid-level king. It would only affect him a little. Scuttling to the ground, Night Sorrow quickly flew for thousands of miles before stopping to rest. This was because the 7 extinction poison smoke was effective. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a chance to survive. After finding a safe place, Night Sorrow smashed the dragon cauldron into the ground and went to rest. Free forever. Little Z said. During this period of time, Night Sorrow was very nervous. After all, he didn't know what the green-scaled king's cultivation was. He really wanted to kill him. After resting for half a day, Night Sorrow came out of the dragon cauldron and continued forward. He collected alchemy materials and smithing materials. He didn't leave anything behind. As for the time, Night Sorrow had a plan. In addition, the 9 regions world's origin was clearer than him about the concept of time. Every month, it would remind Night Sorrow once. At this time, Night Sorrow had already been in the Boundless Soul world for 2 months. There weren't many battles because he didn't attack him. Night Sorrow didn't know how the others were doing. He felt that he was doing well. He had received a lot of resources and only encountered one danger. With the 7 extinction poison smoke, as long as he didn't meet the king who was good at poison and speed, Night was safe. Those who were still alive after running away all went into hiding. Those who were able to cultivate to peak stage Saint Kings and half-step monarchs were not fools. Personal safety was very important. If they ran away and were alone, no one would know what they were doing. It was better to cultivate on the spot and return when it was time. This way, there would not be any danger. Everyone wanted opportunities and benefits. But their lives were the most important. Even if it was a clone, no one was willing to die. After all, the price to nurture a clone was very high. It hurt the soul. A clone was equivalent to a second life. Qian Qiwei had already used a bottle of 7 extinction poison smoke. This way, she ensured that the people of the Xiantian Empire didn't die. After escaping, Qian Qiwei let everyone out. This is the chance Night Sorrow gave us to live. There's only one more chance like this. Sigh. This isn't a place where cultivators below the king can barge in. The result of barging in is death. Without Brother Ye's help, we'll probably lose some people here, Qian Yu said with some emotion. Let's continue forward. If this happens again and we've used up all our life-saving methods, we won't go any deeper. We'll go back when we need to. If it's not our opportunity, we can't force it. I think Lord Great Ancestor and Father won't blame us, Qian Qiwei said. Try your best. If it doesn't work, we have to retreat. We can't be careless about this. Qian Ren nodded. This was what Qian Jinyu had told Yunyu before they left. The soul-cultivating liquid was important, but the future of the Xiantian Empire couldn't be ignored. Peak Saint Kings and half-step kings were the future. They were the seedlings to enter the king realm. They couldn't be used as cannon fodder. Night Sorrow estimated that the situation of those who entered wouldn't be very good, but he didn't expect it to be so bad. He moved towards the central area every day. Because of his high mental state, he was often tired. When he was tired, Night Sorrow would enter the dragon cauldron to drink a pot of wine and make a pot of tea to ease his mood. At this time, in front of the small space world barrier of the infinite soul realm, some sovereigns didn't look good because the soul crystals in their hands had turned dark. That was the sign of people dying. Lord Xiantian looked at the soul crystal in his hand and then looked at Qian Jinyu. Are there any losses? No, not a single one. Qian Jinyu was still very happy because it seemed that only the people of the Xiantian celestial realm were not injured. Yes, that kid is also alive and kicking. Lord Xiantian put the soul crystal in his hand into his sleeve. He was holding the soul crystal of Night Sorrow's soul clone. Brother Xiantian, you're lucky. I guess the thing that kid gave your descendant worked. That's why your descendant didn't die, the Seven Rains Sovereign said to Lord Shantian. Ha! This time, I've invited a treasure. Even if he doesn't get anything, as long as he comes back alive, I'll give him this king-class teleportation crystal, Lord Shantian said. That's a beautiful move. It's purely to buy people's hearts, Lord Purple Cloud said with a smile. No. He saved my Shantian empire from losing people. Just because of that, I have to give him a gift. Buy people's hearts. That kid isn't that easy to buy. He's arrogant, Lord Shantian said. The others smiled disapprovingly, but the Seven Rains Sovereign knew that Lord Shantian was telling the truth. If Night Sorrow was easy to buy, he would be in the Seven Rains world right now. This time, he would be fighting for her. Actually, Shantian, you have the biggest hope. In the infinite domain, he also flew alone, but he took all the benefits. There's no king there. This is fate and fate. The most important thing is that he has the strength, no beginning Sovereign said. Night Sorrow was still moving forward. He was still far from the central area. Besides, the central area of the infinite soul plane was huge. It was hard to say where the infinite cliff was. Night Sorrow knew that he would face two difficulties on this trip to the infinite soul plane. First, he had to find the infinite cliff. Only by finding the infinite cliff could he do what he wanted. Second, he had to find the infinite cliff and find a way to get the soul cultivation liquid under the guard of the king-class demonic beast. Night Sorrow had thought about it. He felt that his chances were high. For example, he could enter the spatial turbulence in advance and sneak near the location of the soul cultivation liquid. Then, he could wait for an opportunity to steal it. Third, he could poison it. At the thought of poisoning, Night Sorrow felt that he had to thank Elder Zhang properly when he returned. If it wasn't for the 7 absolute poison smoke, it would have been a big problem for him to escape the pursuit of the green-scaled king. Chapter 1056. Night Sorrow also paid attention to the poison resources. If the poison was heaven-defying, it was the highest level, which was the king-level poison material, he still had to collect it. With the improvement of his cultivation base, when he enters the king realm, Night Sorrow may not need poison, but what about the people around him? Of course, they need it. Poison can be used for self-protection, and of course, there must be a corresponding antidote. In Night Sorrow's heart, the safety of the people around him was more important than anything else. As time went by, Night Sorrow was getting closer and closer to the core area of the Boundless Soul Realm. He was also getting more and more careful, because there were bound to be many king-level monsters in the core area. If a monster beast wants to cultivate successfully, there are several prerequisites, but these prerequisites are easy to meet in the Boundless Soul Realm. First of all, talent. Some races that are favored by heaven and earth naturally have great talent. The second point is the density of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Boundless Soul Realm is very rich, and there is no problem with this. As for the comprehension of rules, some talented monsters, when they cultivate to a certain level, have the power of rules themselves, such as Tianyu and Yimei. The most important point is the place where the will of heaven and earth manifests. Night Sorrow has found 2 such places, and so far, he has found 2. It is not surprising that there are other places. The prerequisites to become a king-level cultivator, plus the accumulation of time, it is not surprising that there are many king-level monster beast cultivators. As he moved forward, Night Sorrow also bypassed 2 king-level monsters. This is thanks to Night Sorrow's strong soul force. In addition, Night Sorrow has the power of the 9 regions to protect his body. The power of the 9 regions is the power of the world, and the power of the world will not emit strong energy fluctuations. It is not easy for the king-level monsters in the Boundless Soul Realm to find them. They are all found by Night Sorrow first. On the third day of the third month, Night Sorrow is in a dilemma. He found a king-level monster beast, which is a level 2 king. Night Sorrow can detect its cultivation, he can avoid it, but in fact, Night Sorrow does not want to go. The habitat of king-level monsters is generally a place with rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It is a paradise. For head/hair. This time, the level 2 king-level monster that Night Sorrow found was the 6-winged Bat King. The place where it lived has a spiritual energy of origin, not to mention the origin stone. There is also a fruit tree growing in the origin spiritual energy pool. Vermilion fruit. That is a king-level alchemy material, the main ingredient of the 9 transformation pill, which can strengthen the body. If it was in the past, Yi Shang might not have been so knowledgeable. However, after cultivating alchemy in the Heavenly Cauldron sect, Yi Shang had dabbled in both monarch-level pills and ingredients. For example, the Yun Spirit Pill was a heaven-defying pill that could change a cultivator's aptitude. Back in the 9 Domains world, Yi Shang did not even recognize the main ingredient of the Yun Spirit Pill, the Yun Spirit Pill. Of course, even if Night Sorrow obtains the materials of the Yun Spirit Pill, he will not be able to refine it. Only a king-level alchemist, which is to say, a heavenly master-level alchemist, can refine it. The 9 transformation pill is the same as the Yun Spirit Pill. They are both king-level pills. Although he can't refine it for the time being, he has to accumulate it. Night Sorrow is very eager to refine the 9 transformation pill. Why? If he wants to cultivate the myriad Tao Tome to the imperishable realm, which is the king realm, he will need resources. The comprehension of the will of time can allow Night Sorrow's body to contain the will of heaven and earth, allowing him to enter the imperishable realm. After entering the imperishable realm, the strength of the body and energy will need to increase. This requires the support of resources. The life spirit liquid can be used, but it is not enough. The 9 transformation pill is Night Sorrow's best choice. After thinking for a while in the Dragon Cauldron, Night Sorrow decided to do it. Wealth comes from danger. The 2-star king level 6-winged Bat King is not a big threat. After deciding to fight for it, Yi Shang formulated a battle plan. First, he had to take the Jade Pool of Spiritual Origin Liquid, snatch the Vermilion Fruit Tree and the Origin Stone, and then escape. If he can use the Will of Time and Space to increase his speed, it will be best if he can get rid of the 6-winged Bat King. If not, then he can use the 7 Extinction Poison Smoke. With this thought in mind, Night Sorrow entered the spatial turbulence and slowly made his way towards the 6-winged Bat King's resting place. Discovered. Night Sorrow knows that he will not be discovered in the space turbulence, unless it is the king who controls the will of space. The space turbulence and the infinite soul world are 2 different spaces, and their nature is different. Searching from the infinite soul world into the space turbulence, the soul power will be swept away by the space turbulence, and it is a laborious task. Besides, who would waste their soul power to do this? It is completely useless. However, it was different to probe the outside of the spatial turbulence. It had a specific target. Night Sorrow flew in the space turbulence. The energy and rule power of the space turbulence is not a big problem for Night Sorrow. He has the will of space and the rule power to protect himself, and has the most basic suppression to the space turbulence. Gradually, Night Sorrow approached the area where the 6-winged Bat King is. It is a cave. Night Sorrow entered the cave and observed from the side. At this time in the cave, the 6-winged Bat King, who was meditating next to the Origin Spiritual Liquid Pool, stood up. It instinctively felt uneasy, and its mind was restless. This is a kind of feeling that a high-level cultivator has. The 6-winged Bat King stood up and fully displayed itself in front of Night Sorrow. The 6-winged Bat King is a man, with a tall and sturdy body. It is wearing a blood-red battle robe and has 3 pairs of blood-red wings on its back. Its face is full of red stripes, a pair of pointed ears, and 4 fangs are exposed outside of its lips. Night Sorrow stood in the space turbulence and observed the situation. Dragon cauldron patterns appeared around his body. The dragon cauldron has Night Sorrow's body as the center, spreading energy to protect Night Sorrow. The dragon cauldron has the ability to suppress. Even if Night Sorrow does not move, the energy of the space turbulence will not be able to pull him. The 6-winged Bat King paces back and forth in the cave. It does not understand why it is feeling uneasy. This is not a good feeling. High-level cultivators understand that some feelings do not come from nowhere. There must be a reason. After pondering for a moment, the 6-winged Bat King moved. It left the cave and flew outside. Since it has a bad feeling, it naturally has to investigate and see if there is a problem. Night Sorrow's soul force burst forth, constantly probing the 6-winged Bat King's figure. The 6-winged Bat King has gone far away, and Night Sorrow's spirit rose. Opportunity. Opportunity knocks but once, it will not come again. This is the opportunity Night Sorrow needs. Night Sorrow stretched out his arm and tore through space. He entered the cave and waved his right hand to use a space blade, cutting off the bottom of the Origin Spiritual Liquid Pool. He collected the Origin Spiritual Liquid Pool into the Dragon Cauldron and then tore through space again to enter the space turbulence. After entering the space turbulence, Night Sorrow waved his hand and smoothed out the space crack. After doing all this, Night Sorrow tried to restrain the energy fluctuations. But in fact, the energy fluctuations were still detected by the 6-winged Bat King. By the time it sensed the energy fluctuations, Night Sorrow had already entered the space turbulence. Chapter 1057. Night Sorrow did all this very quickly. Even though the 6-winged Bat King sensed the energy fluctuations, it did not discover Night Sorrow's figure. After entering the spatial turbulence, Night Sorrow began to fly. Not far from the cave entrance, Night Sorrow brushed past the 6-winged Bat King. However, one was in the infinite world, while the other was in the spatial turbulence of the infinite world. In the spatial turbulence, Night Sorrow used his fastest speed to fly away from this troublesome place. This time, he had profited. While flying, Night Sorrow could still detect that the 6-winged Bat King was crazily smashing and jumping around in the cave. The 6-winged Bat King was counting on the vermilion fruit to strengthen its body, but the vermilion fruit had not matured yet, so it had been waiting for it to mature. Consuming the vermilion fruit before it matured would not be effective, but now it was all for naught. It did not understand what was going on. It had not discovered any opponents or enemies at all, but now the pool of Origin Spiritual Liquid was gone. Everything was gone. This made it extremely angry. It simply could not accept it. Forever QJ long free, look. Night Sorrow also knew that the vermilion fruit had not matured yet. This was also the reason why he had uprooted the Origin Spiritual Liquid Pool. He did not put it in his storage ring because he was afraid that the vermilion fruit would die without air. There was no such disadvantage in the Dragon Cauldron. After flying for thousands of miles, Night Sorrow left the spatial turbulence. The Dragon Cauldron shrank and smashed into the ground. He entered the Dragon Cauldron to rest and admire his results. The Dragon Cauldron had its own space, and it was not affected by the size of the outside. Standing in the Dragon Cauldron space, Night Sorrow looked at the Origin Spiritual Liquid Pool, the Origin Stone, and the Vermilion Fruit Tree. His heart was filled with joy. The 9 regions' origins told Night Sorrow that the Vermilion Fruit Tree in the Dragon Cauldron would still be damaged. He could put it in the 9 regions' origin bead and use the power of the world to nourish it. Not only would it not be damaged, but it would also mature quickly. Night Sorrow nodded and let the 9 regions' origin store the Origin Spiritual Liquid Pool in the origin bead. The Dragon Cauldron was a treasure, but it was still very different from the 9 regions' origin beads. Heavenly materials and earthly treasures were all produced by the Bell spirit chi within a world. They required the support of a world's power, even if it was weak. This was something that the dragon cauldron could not achieve, but the 9-region origin bead could. After drinking a jar of wine and having a good rest, Knight Sorrow advanced with satisfaction. As long as he could enter the king realm, refining the 9 transformation pill would not be a problem. Now, Knight Sorrow already had a lot of king-level pill materials, such as the Yun Spirit Pill that could improve one's cultivation aptitude, the 9 Transformation Pill that could improve one's physical fitness, and so on. Knight Sorrow didn't feel guilty about snatching the 6-winged Bat King's fortuitous encounter. Fortuitous encounters had to be fought for. If he fought for it, it would be his. Knight Sorrow continued to explore carefully. No matter how much he gained, safety was the first priority. If this clone died, the 9 regions origin bead would bring his weapons and resources back to the 9 regions world, but the loss would also be great. It was not easy to nurture a soul clone with 90% of its strength. What made Knight Sorrow even more puzzled was that he had been here for a long time, but he had not met a cultivator from the 9 Clouds world group. Although the chances of meeting were low, he should still be able to meet them when he was close to the core area. Even if he did not meet anyone, he should have seen traces of collecting materials and ores, but now he did not see anything. What Knight Sorrow did not know was that there was not a single person from the 9 Clouds world group heading towards the central area. Qian Changwei, Qian Yu, and the others did not dare to move forward recklessly. The 2 bottles of 7 Extremes poison smoke that Knight Sorrow had given her had already been used. After the other monarch subordinates were scattered by the king-level monsters, they all ran to a more hidden place to cultivate, waiting for the time to go out. They all cherished their lives more. At this time, in front of the space barrier of the small world, Monarch Yuan Ling muttered, "For such a long time, no one has fallen. This is not working." They must have run to some corner to lie down, waiting for the time to expire. The other monarchs also smiled. The situation of all the monarch subordinates was like this. Except for the beginning stage, no one had fallen. This was not in line with common sense. Only Monarch Yuan Ling could explain it this way. To be able to cultivate to the monarch level, which one was not a genius? After the situation was analyzed, the result naturally came out. This is also helpless. It's too dangerous inside. When I went in, I also had a narrow escape. I could come out alive because I had a special life-saving method. Monarch Zishao said. Monarch Zishao also needed the soul cultivation liquid, but he could no longer enter the infinite soul plane. However, he knew how bad the situation inside was. This is gambling on luck. We are gambling on luck. They are also gambling on cultivation resources, gambling on a future. But knowing that there is no hope and still risking their lives, this is something that no one would do, except for that little guy. Monarch Hylon said. Everyone knew who the little guy Monarch Hylon was talking about was. He is not stupid, but because he is young, he has a drive. Besides, his strength is enough. If he is not a king-level expert who is good at speed, if he just runs, it will not be easy to kill him. Monarch 7 Rain said. Yes, currently only Xian Tian has some hope. We have no chance. Monarch No Beginning nodded. His disciple He Feng's soul avatar had already fallen. I'm also looking forward to it, but this chance is indeed not high. Whether or not we can find the immeasurable cliff is a problem. We don't know how many dangers are hidden along the way. Once we reach the immeasurable cliff, the high-level demonic beasts that cultivate there are not that easy to deal with. Xian Tian King said. He was indeed looking forward to it, but he also knew how difficult it was to get the soul cultivation liquid. The disciple who fell in my soul avatar will come later. We will ask him about the situation later. Monarch No Beginning said. Black Wind was originally cultivating. It was his soul doppelganger that followed No Beginning sovereign into infinite soul realm. When his soul doppelganger fell, his cultivation stopped. Now he was on his way to report the situation to No Beginning sovereign. At this time, all the monarchs were worried. Although they had cultivated for many years and had seen through some things, they still cherished outstanding descendants. It was not easy for an outstanding descendant to cultivate to the level of a saint king or a half-step king. Therefore, no one wanted their subordinates to fall in the infinite soul plane. 4 hours later, Hei Feng appeared. He was brought by Luo Qi Sha. Shao, what's the situation inside? Monarch No Beginning asked. It's bad. Third senior sister and I have encountered 2 king-level monsters. The first time, third senior sister used a sound wave attack to control us and made us run away. The second time, it was a king-level Great Earth Grey Bear. My third senior sister's sound wave attack was ineffective. A few of us died. Hei Feng said. The death rate is too high. We have only been in there for less than half a year, and we have already encountered 2 king-level monsters. It is clear that the infinite soul plane is very dangerous. Monarch No Beginning said. At this time, Yi Shang was investigating as he flew towards the center of the boundless soul realm. Yi Shang planned to take care of business first, and then look for materials in a down-to-earth manner. Chapter 1058. If you don't finish the big things and do the small things, you won't feel at ease. After moving forward for a while, the 9 regions origin guided Night Sorrow, and he felt the core area of the boundless soul realm. Now that I have a direction, let's fight. Night Sorrow murmured in a low voice. At this time, he had no choice but to rush forward and think of a way when he reached the place. Yi Shang was most worried about encountering a high-class monarch king or a strong middle-class monarch king. If that was the case, he wouldn't stand a chance. Speed advantage was relative. You were the fastest among the children, but no matter how fast the children ran, they could not outrun the adults. Their legs were short, and this was a gap that could not be changed. As he moved forward, Night Sorrow found that he had entered a king's world. This was the land of the dragons, the land of the 4-clawed silver dragons. In the 9 regions world, Xueshi helped Night Sorrow get the silver dragon blood essence. The level of the silver dragons in the 9 regions world's silver demon mountain range was not high. The highest level was the venerable rank, but here, not to mention the venerable rank and saint rank, there were saint king rank and king rank. After detecting 2 king-level silver dragons, Night Sorrow knew that he could not move forward like this. If he was accidentally detected, he would be hunted down. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow flew into the space turbulence. When he rested, he used the dragon cauldron to suppress the space turbulence. He rested and recovered his cultivation base in the dragon cauldron. The dragon cauldron was the same as the space-time treasure pagoda. It needed spirit stones to carry the space turbulence. Now Night Sorrow was a person who did not lack spirit stones. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow's speed of progress was much slower, and the relative safety was much higher. As he moved forward, Night Sorrow found another good phenomenon, that is, the silver dragons were fond of sleeping, and they were all in deep sleep. Night Sorrow understood that this was the characteristic of the dragons. He continued to move forward. After a while, Night Sorrow would come out, determine the direction and continue to move forward. In the 5th month since Night Sorrow entered, he arrived at the immeasurable cliff. At this time, he could no longer see the silver dragon. Night Sorrow did not feel happy even though he could not see the silver dragon. The fact that there was no silver dragon in this area meant that they did not dare to come here. There was an existence that they respected and feared here. Staying in the dragon cauldron, Night Sorrow drank a pot of heart-cleansing tea. After clearing his mind and calming his emotions, Knight Sorrow knew that he had to get close to Immeasurable Cliff no matter what. The value of the soul cultivation liquid was high, and Black Heaven Monarch only needed 3 drops. This meant that 3 drops could be exchanged for a king-class teleportation crystal. No matter how many of these resources there were, they would never complain about having too many. There was nothing that the soul cultivation fluid couldn't trade for, and there were also benefits to having a stockpile. The Purple Cloud Sovereign didn't need it back then, and he still needed it now. Knight Sorrow never lacked confidence in himself. Although he did not enter the King Realm, entering the King Realm was just around the corner. After entering the King Realm, he would slowly cultivate. The Monarch Realm was very far away, but as long as there was time, there was hope. 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, a king's lifespan was unlimited. Ordinary kings had the possibility of dying because of conflicts, fighting for opportunities, and other reasons. However, Knight Sorrow would not, because he was a realm lord. As long as he was careful and stayed in the 9 regions world, there would be no possibility of dying. In the 9 Clouds world group, there were many sect leaders, and kings. There were also some monarchs, but currently, only Yen Tianpo was the realm lord. Only Yen Tianpo was called the Flame Realm Lord. Of course, only a limited number of people knew that Knight Sorrow was the realm lord, so it did not spread. Forever % free Q read small, speak when a realm lord cultivated to the king realm, as long as their original body did not leave their own world, they would be immortal. It was impossible for anyone to kill them, unless they destroyed the world first. After organizing his thoughts, Knight Sorrow entered the spatial turbulence and rushed towards the immeasurable cliff. In the spatial turbulence, Knight Sorrow could investigate everything in reality. After advancing for 2 days, Knight Sorrow arrived at the immeasurable cliff. The immeasurable cliff towered into the clouds, causing people to have a respectful heart. The towering mountain seemed to have been cut off, it was the uncanny workmanship of nature. There were a few ancient trees on the immeasurable cliff. Knight Sorrow saw a tea tree, it was the best tea tree of the best, the soul-nourishing tea tree. At the bottom of the immeasurable cliff lay a huge monster. It was a 6-horned silver dragon, a 6-star king. This was the conclusion that Knight Sorrow had come to after observing a few king-level silver dragons these days. At this time, the silver dragon was still sleeping soundly. In front of its head, there was a stalactite hanging from the cliff. At the tip, there was a drop of sparkling liquid. Soul-nourishing liquid. The tip of the stone bell was the soul-nourishing liquid. The soul-nourishing liquid was in front of him, but Knight Sorrow did not dare to leave the spatial turbulence. The energy fluctuation from breaking through the spatial barrier would definitely wake the silver dragon from its deep sleep. Then everything would be over. After Knight Sorrow left the immeasurable cliff for some distance, he pondered how to obtain the soul-nourishing liquid without being discovered by the silver dragon. That was the Silver Dragon King. If he angered it, with a roar, all the silver dragons would surround and attack him. After thinking for a while, Knight Sorrow felt that the best method was to let the silver dragon sleep even more deeply, making it harder for it to wake up. Soul-pacifying smoke. Using the Requiem smoke, which could make creatures fall into a deep sleep, to deal with the silver dragon was Knight Sorrow's idea. Poison smoke would not work. Poison smoke could not kill a 6-star king rank silver dragon. Moreover, it would wake up once it was injured. The soul-pacifying smoke and the 7 extremes poison smoke were different in nature. The soul-pacifying smoke was not poisonous. This way, the silver dragon would not be alerted by the danger. Materials. Knight Sorrow left the vicinity of the immeasurable cliff and began to look for materials. Looking for materials was also a dangerous process. He had to be careful not to be discovered by other king-rank silver dragons. Fortunately, the soul-pacifying smoke was only a saint-rank pill. Although the materials were difficult to find, it was not impossible to find. Using half a month, Night Sorrow gathered all the materials for the soul-pacifying smoke. Placing the dragon cauldron underground, Night Sorrow entered the dragon cauldron and began to refine the soul-pacifying smoke. Although the soul-pacifying smoke was a saint-rank pill, Night Sorrow was very careful when refining it because he could not afford to fail. 4 hours later, the extremely condensed soul-pacifying smoke was successfully refined by Night Sorrow. In order to increase the quantity and hold on for a little longer, Night Sorrow refined all the materials for the soul-pacifying smoke and refined more than 30 bottles of soul-pacifying smoke. Knowing that it was the main course and the most crucial moment, Night Sorrow took out a jar of wine and slowly drank it, calming his emotions. He understood that whether he lived or died, whether he succeeded or failed, all depended on the next strike of the hammer. If he succeeded, he would leave with a great harvest. If not, the possibility of his clone leaving alive was not high. In front of a 6-star Saint King rank Silver Dragon King, escaping into the spatial turbulence was useless. Night Sorrow did not dare to enter the spatial turbulence to get close to the Silver Dragon King. This was because when he tore open the spatial barrier in the spatial turbulence, the energy fluctuations produced would definitely wake the Silver Dragon King up. Night Sorrow felt that the safest way was to shrink the dragon cauldron to the limit and slowly fly forward. After getting close, he could directly release the soul-pacifying smoke. This way, it would not cause any energy fluctuations. Feeling that there were no loopholes, Night Sorrow began to take action. He controlled the dragon cauldron, which was the size of a grain of sand, to approach the area where the Silver Dragon King was. Slow, very slow. Night Sorrow controlled the dragon cauldron to fly very slowly. The main reason was that he did not want to cause any energy fluctuations and wake the Silver Dragon King up. Chapter 1059. Night Sorrow advanced very slowly, mainly because he did not want to cause any energy fluctuations that would alert the Silver Dragon King. So be it if he was slow. Night Sorrow was not in a hurry. Stability was the most important thing. Obtaining the treasure safely was the way to go. It took Night Sorrow 4 days to arrive in front of the Silver Dragon King with the help of the wind. Night Sorrow slowly moved the dragon cauldron to the bottom of the Silver Dragon King's huge nose. He opened the poison bottle of the Requiem smoke and used the 9 regions world's origin energy to wrap the Requiem smoke and send it out of the dragon cauldron, directly under the Silver Dragon King's nose. As the Silver Dragon King breathed, the Requiem smoke was sucked in by its twitching nose. After a bottle of Requiem smoke, the Silver Dragon King's snoring became even louder, and its nostrils flashed. Continue. To be safe, Night Sorrow wrapped the Requiem smoke with the 9 regions world's origin energy and continued to send it into the Silver Dragon King's nose. After 3 bottles of concentrated Requiem smoke were sent into the Silver Dragon King's nostrils, Night Sorrow waved his arm, and a jade bottle flew out and landed below the inverted stalactite. At this moment, the sparkling soul cultivation liquid on the stalactite dripped into the jade bottle. For jade, what Night Sorrow needed now was time, as long as the Silver Dragon King did not wake up. The 3 bottles of Requiem smoke lasted for 2 hours. At this time, the Silver Dragon King's snoring became a little weaker. Night Sorrow continued to send a bottle of Requiem smoke into the Silver Dragon King's nostrils. He started to use 3 bottles of Requiem smoke. Night Sorrow wanted to let the Silver Dragon King enter a deep sleep. Now, he did not need to do that. He could use bottles one by one to let the Silver Dragon King continue to sleep. In 2 hours, Night Sorrow's jade bottle had collected 3 drops of soul cultivation liquid. Because the soul cultivation liquid was special, its energy was very condensed and would not evaporate. Night Sorrow did not have to consider the problem of changing bottles. Excited. At that moment, Night Sorrow was quite excited because everything was very stable and the Silver Dragon King showed no signs of waking up. He could wait and collect it slowly. When the Night Sorrow had consumed half of his Requiem smoke and 15 bottles, the situation changed. It was not the Silver Dragon King's problem, but the soul-cultivating liquid. The soul-cultivating liquid's production was too slow. Only 1 drop was produced every 2 hours, which was more than twice as slow as before. Night Sorrow understood that the soul cultivation fluid was not endless. He had collected close to 30 drops, with 10 drops per bottle. This was already his 4th bottle. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow decided to wait a little longer. If it didn't work out, then he would leave. This was already a heaven-defying harvest. Another day passed, but the soul-nurturing liquid did not produce a single drop after 6 hours. Night Sorrow knew it was time for him to leave. But before he left, Night Sorrow decided to make a big move, and that was to take all the Holy Spirit stones and crystals beside the Silver Dragon. Dragons liked shiny things. All sorts of spirit stones, crystals, gems, and ores were their hobbies. After making his decision, Night Sorrow sent the remaining 10 bottles of Requiem smoke into the Silver Dragon King's nostrils. As the Silver Dragon King's abdomen heaved up and down, snoring thunderously, Night Sorrow used his world energy to protect himself. His figure flashed out of the dragon cauldron and collected the jade bottles of soul-cultivating liquid. Then, he waved his arm and collected all the Holy Spirit stones, attribute crystals, and ores beside the Silver Dragon King into his spatial ring. Then, he flew to the soul-nurturing tea tree on the cliff and started digging. However, the 9 domain origins told Night Sorrow that the soul-nurturing tea tree's survival and growth had a lot to do with the immeasurable cliff. It was useless for him to dig it up. Night Sorrow controlled the power of the 9 realms origin and collected the tea leaves on the soul-nurturing tea tree, leaving only a bare branch. After finishing the fight, he stopped and left. After collecting the soul-nurturing tea tree, Night Sorrow flew into the distance. He had achieved his goal here. Escaping was a victory. After Night Sorrow left the immeasurable cliff for some distance, he burst forth with the will of space and the power of space and started flying rapidly. When Night Sorrow was by the Silver Dragon King's side, he used the 9 domain origins. That was because his world energy was relatively gentle and would not easily attract the Silver Dragon King's attention. Now that he had left the most dangerous area, what was he waiting for if he did not run at full speed? After leaving the Silver Dragon King's territory, Night Sorrow changed his strategy and entered the chaotic space to fly. Outside the Silver Dragon King's territory, there were other monarch-rank silver dragons residing there. If they barged in recklessly, they would be in big trouble. Traveling through the spatial turbulence would be slower, and they would also consume energy. However, they would be able to avoid some dangers. Comparing the pros and cons, Night Sorrow felt that consuming a little more energy was not a big deal. After spending more than half a month, Night Sorrow passed through the Silver Dragon's territory and arrived at a relatively safe area. Night Sorrow felt more at ease. The main reason was that the Silver Dragon's territory was too dangerous. Because the Silver Dragons were a race that was good at speed, once they were developed, it would be a great crisis. After being safe, Night Sorrow entered the dragon cauldron to rest. During this period of rushing, Night Sorrow's nerves were very tense. Now he wanted to relax. Night Sorrow opened a jar of wine and drank a mouthful. He roared and then laughed. It was not easy. This was a big harvest. If he got out smoothly, the soul-nurturing liquid in his hands would be something that could make all the monarchs go crazy. However, he would not take it out. It was best to hide this kind of treasure. After drinking 2 jars of wine, Night Sorrow rested for half a day before continuing on his journey. At the same time, Night Sorrow also collected the resources along the way. It could be said that the Boundless Soul Realm was a paradise for adventurers. There were top-grade materials everywhere, but it was also a grave for adventurers. Behind the rich benefits, there was danger at every step. Knight Sorrow avoided the path he came from and slowly moved forward, collecting resources. He was in a very good mood. But the situation corresponded to a saying, extreme joy begets sorrow. On this day, Knight Sorrow found a big problem. That was, he could not move forward. Why couldn't he move forward? It was because Knight Sorrow had fallen into a large natural array. Originally, this array was not in an active state because Knight Sorrow had collected a piece of celestial blue stone. The existence of the celestial blue stone interfered with the operation of the natural array. After Knight Sorrow collected the celestial blue stone, the array was activated. Knight Sorrow wanted to put the celestial blue stone back, but he could not. Knight Sorrow was still fine when he did not move. Once he moved, all kinds of energy attacks were launched. Moreover, the energy attacks contained the power of law and the power of will. Heavenly Cycle Stars Array. Knight Sorrow pondered for a while and knew what kind of array this was. It was a natural Heavenly Cycle Stars Array. This was not a large array that was artificially arranged. The array foundation was untraceable, and it was very difficult to break. Knight Sorrow wanted to break it, but he could not do it because this was a king-grade array. Knight Sorrow used the space rend, but he could only make the space ripple. The space rend could not break through the space barrier. In other words, it would be very difficult for Knight Sorrow to enter the chaotic space and leave this place. This made Knight Sorrow somewhat confused. He had a time limit. If he could not get out before 2 years, then he would not be able to get out. After thinking for a while, Knight Sorrow took out the space rend and used the Sky Wasteland Kill to attack the space, then used the space rend. Chapter 1060. As Knight Sorrow attacked, space began to tremble. Following this, Knight Sorrow's spatial rend slashed towards the trembling space. Knight Sorrow's spatial rend slashed open a thin crack in space. Following this, he used spatial will and spatial laws to try and widen the crack. However, all of this was futile. Even after using up more than half of his spatial will and spatial energy, the spatial crack was still as big as before. Taking a deep breath, Knight Sorrow continued to attack the spatial barrier. He knew that it was impossible to break out of this formation. Tearing apart the spatial barrier was his only chance. After attacking a dozen times, Knight Sorrow felt that his attacks were still not powerful enough. He had to continue researching and strengthen his attacks. Only then would he be able to tear apart space and escape this formation. Without increasing his cultivation base, it would be very difficult to increase his attack power. Knight Sorrow planned to make a breakthrough in his battle skills and increase his attack power. Knight Sorrow started researching a new battle skill. It was a spatial attribute battle skill that used spatial energy to unleash the spiral-piercing energy. It was called Spatial Twisting Dragon Kill. Knight Sorrow had named it because the spatial energy emitted by the spiral-piercing energy was like a dragon spiraling through space. Knight Sorrow had spent over 20 days researching this battle skill because it involved spatial laws and spatial will. After creating the battle skill, Knight Sorrow had started researching how to familiarize himself with it. As he became more familiar with it, his attack power would naturally increase. Because he was trapped, Knight Sorrow had been cultivating every day. As time passed, the spatial twisting dragon kill's power grew stronger and stronger. It had already created a black hole in space. However, even if Knight Sorrow wanted to go in, it still wasn't enough. He could only continue researching. This time, Knight Sorrow's research direction had changed. After using spatial twisting dragon kill, he would use spatial vibration energy. In other words, after spatial twisting dragon kill, he would use spatial vibration energy. This was a new path, and Night Sorrow had to continuously explore it. After all, it was two different methods of attack power. Time slowly slipped away. In the blink of an eye, Night Sorrow had been trapped for more than half a year. After nearly a year of bitter cultivation, Night Sorrow's battle prowess had increased by a lot. However, there was still a gap between that and breaking through the spatial barrier. Night Sorrow felt that it would be much faster. After the spatial twisting dragon kill connected with the shockwave, a black hole appeared in the space. The shockwave also caused spiderweb-like cracks to appear. If it wasn't enough, he would continue his research. Night Sorrow connected the spatial twisting dragon kill and the shockwave with the shockwave. Because there was a problem with the energy, Night Sorrow used the power of Desolates to connect the shockwave with the shockwave. The combination of these three battle skills was the strongest that Night Sorrow could achieve. Even the average basic king couldn't reach this level. However, Night Sorrow still didn't break through the spatial barrier. This was because the Heavenly Cycle Star Array had an extremely strong recovery ability. As long as it couldn't be broken instantly, the natural Heavenly Cycle Star Array could recover the damage that Night Sorrow caused to the spatial barrier. After thinking for a moment, Night Sorrow slapped himself. He had the Law of Time, so he could use it to resist the array's energy from recovering the spatial barrier. Following that, Night Sorrow activated the Law of Time and isolated the array's energy recovery from the area he attacked. Following that, he waved his hand and attacked the spatial barrier with 3 battle skills. Night Sorrow's spatial twisting dragon kill blasted a huge hole in the spatial barrier. Following that, the spiderweb-like area created by the spatial shockwave was shattered by the shockwave. Following that, Night Sorrow entered the spatial turbulence and left the encirclement of the Heavenly Cycle Star Array. Not bad. You've really developed a violent battle skill. However, you're really stubborn. When you first started, you cut a crack in space. Didn't you control the dragon cauldron to shrink and enter? 9 Realms Origins communicated with Night Sorrow. Upon hearing 9 Realms Origins words, Night Sorrow reached out and slapped himself again. He hadn't thought about this. He had been thinking about how to enter the spatial turbulence, so he hadn't thought about controlling the dragon cauldron to enter. However, Night Sorrow was still satisfied with his gains in half a year. His cultivation level hadn't increased, but his strength had improved greatly. He had once again integrated his strength into high-level battles. It's because you've improved. You've improved quickly under high pressure. That's why I didn't warn you. You might have been able to collect a lot of resources in half a year, but compared to your own strength, resources aren't worth mentioning. There's no comparison at all. The 9 Zones Origins explained why they hadn't warned Night Sorrow. Yes, your own strength is the absolute truth. This half a year was very worth it. For me, my purpose of coming to the Boundless Soul Realm this time has been achieved. The extra time has been exchanged for the improvement of my own strength. It's very good. After Night Sorrow's initial depression, what followed was happiness. Original J first V send, you don't have much time left. There are still a few months left. The journey is still relatively long and the situation on the road is more dangerous. In fact, even if you can't cultivate it, I still have to remind you. 9 Realms Origins said. Night Sorrow knew that there wasn't much time left. There was still a long way to go. There were still many king-level obstacles on the road. Using all his strength to detect the danger, Night Sorrow advanced at full speed. Time waited for no one. If he couldn't reach the space barrier in time, he would be trapped in the Boundless Soul Realm. If there were king-level monsters, Night Sorrow would avoid them and advance at full speed. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In front of the space barrier of the small space world, the 9 firmament world cultivators who entered the Boundless Soul Realm came out one after another. Half a month later, the boundless soul realm and the small world would be separated. They couldn't come out even if they wanted to. The sovereigns didn't ask their saint kings and half-step king about their gains. If they kept hiding, it would be impossible to gain anything. Qin Yin told no beginning sovereign about the situation. She also said that she didn't go to the core area. She only looked for resources in the periphery. I understand. It's good that you can come back alive. No beginning sovereign nodded. He didn't blame his disciple at all. Qin Yin had already done her best. The inside wasn't something they could resist. Xian Qiangwei brought people back and also apologized to Xian Tian sovereign. She said that if it wasn't for Knight Soro's help, they wouldn't have been able to come back alive. The disciples of the Seven Rain sovereigns also explained the situation. Great Ancestor, I'm sorry. It's too scary inside. I can't do anything. Long Jin said to Hai Lan sovereign after exiting the space barrier. You're injured. Hai Lan sovereign looked at Long Jin and asked. After the team was broken up by a double-winged flying tiger, I tried to go deeper into the forest. In the end, I was chased by a monarch-level demonic beast for a while. After I was severely injured, I used my family's secret technique to survive, Long Jin said. This is a sea spirit pill. Take it and heal. Hai Lan sovereign threw a jade bottle to Long Jin. Long Jin, did you see Knight Soro? Xian Tian sovereign asked. I didn't see him, but I saw the traces of that bastard collecting alchemy materials and refining materials. It was like he was scraping the ground. He didn't even leave a hair for the people behind. He's a fraud. Long Jin muttered. Chapter 1061. Did he keep going deeper? Qian Qiangwei asked. She really didn't want anything to happen to Knight Soro. That's a scammer. I thought that the path he took should be safe. In the end, he was injured by a monarch-tier demonic beast and ran away. Then, I returned to the original path and followed his tracks. Then, I was chased by a monarch-tier demonic beast again. What a nuisance. Long Jin cursed. The other monarchs shook their heads. Long Jin's idea was right, but the path suitable for Knight Soro might not be suitable for him, so he was tricked. There's only half a month left. Why isn't he back yet? Qian Yu's heart was full of worry. That's enough. You're still worried about him. He crossed the territory of a king-level beast twice without any problems. He won't die, Long Jin said. He was still angry that he had been tricked twice. If he didn't have the ability to protect his life, he would have been tricked to death by Knight Soro. Then, someone else came out, but there was no sign of Knight Soro. At this moment, Yi Shan was frantically running for his life. This was because when he was rushing, a monarch-level demon beast suddenly appeared. It was a wandering monarch-level demon beast, so it didn't have a fixed territory. Knight Soro had seen this beast before. It was the green-scaled king whose cultivation level he could not see when he was digging the mine. Unfortunately, he met an old rival, a king whose cultivation level could not be seen. All Knight Soro could do was run. Knight Soro ran into the spatial turbulence while the green-scaled king chased after him. This king will definitely kill you. This time, your poisonous smoke will not be effective, the green-scaled king shouted as it chased. Knight Soro knew that the 7 deadly poisonous smoke would not be effective if the green-scaled king was prepared. Fortunately, Knight Soro's speed was not affected in the spatial turbulence, but the green-scaled king was affected. After all, it did not have the spatial attribute. With the help of the environment, Knight Soro and the green-scaled king's speed were equal. Knight Soro would consume both the origin elixir and life elixir at the same time. This way, he would be able to maintain his peak condition. The green-scale king's cultivation was high, and his energy recovery was higher than the consumption in the space turbulence, which meant that he was always in peak condition. The chase continued in the chaotic space. The speed of the green-scaled king was the same as Night Sorrow's in the chaotic space. Therefore, Night Sorrow was not worried. He could replenish his energy. If this continued, even if they reached the spatial barrier, the green-scaled king would not be able to kill him. As for chasing into that small space world, if the green-scaled king dared to enter, he would be in trouble. There were many kings in that small space world. If the green-scaled king dared to enter, he would die. Normally, if one's cultivation was higher than the king's, one would not be able to enter other worlds without using the teleportation circle. This was because the rules of the space world did not allow it. However, the small space world near the Boundless Soul world was a barren world. In other words, it was broken and had no rules. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. Night Sorrow was very close to the spatial barrier. He could return to the small world by tearing the spatial barrier. In addition, he did not have much time. The 9 regions world's origin told Night Sorrow that he only had 2 days. After making the decision, Night Sorrow threw the 3 bottles of 7 deadly poisonous smoke behind him and used his energy to explode them. Then, he tore the space and arrived at the Boundless world. Then, he used his bloodline talent to protect himself and flew quickly. Although the 7 deadly poisonous smoke could not hurt the green-scaled king when he was on guard, it could stop him. Time and distance were what Night Sorrow needed the most. Seeing the blue poisonous smoke blocking his path and the unstable spatial barrier, the green-scaled king was stunned. He could not leave through the spatial barrier area that Night Sorrow came out of. He could only stop and attack the spatial barrier twice. Then, he tore the spatial barrier and arrived at the Boundless world to continue chasing Night Sorrow. However, at this time, Night Sorrow had already flown a distance away. The spatial barrier of the Boundless Soul world was not far away. Night Sorrow knew that his safety was in front of him. According to the distance and time calculation, Night Sorrow would definitely tear the spatial barrier and enter the small space world before the green-scaled king caught up. This king will kill you even if you have to go to the ends of the earth. The green-scaled king was very annoyed. To him, Night Sorrow was an ant. However, this ant could jump and he could not stop it. There was still a distance from the spatial barrier. Night Sorrow's spatial crack slashed out. After cutting open the spatial barrier, he entered without slowing down. Without waiting for the spatial barrier that Night Sorrow flattened to stabilize, the green-scaled king slashed open the spatial barrier and entered the spatial turbulence to continue the chase. Break! Night Sorrow used the spatial crack again and cut open the spatial barrier of the small space world. Then, he entered the small space world. After entering the spatial world, Night Sorrow's body drew an arc and landed beside the mysterious Heaven Lord. At this time, the spatial barrier was broken and the green-scaled king also rushed into the small space world. After entering the small space world, the green-scaled king was dumbfounded. This was because a row of people stood in front of him and he could not see their cultivation clearly. Lords, this is a misunderstanding. I will leave immediately. The green-scaled king stammered. However, the spatial crack had already been flattened by the mysterious Heaven Lord. What's the situation with Night Sorrow? The mysterious Heaven Lord asked. This fella has been chasing me for half a month. Fortunately, I ran quickly. Otherwise, I would have been killed by him. Night Sorrow said. I didn't know he was your man. I am very sorry. I will leave now. The green-scaled king's forehead was covered in sweat and his body kept bowing. After chasing you for half a month, you can go and die. The mysterious Heaven Lord waved his arm and a black-purple crescent moon slash was sent out, killing the green-scaled king. Brothers, we will meet again if we have the chance. The mysterious Heaven Lord waved his sleeves and left with the people from the mysterious Heaven world. At this time, he did not ask Night Sorrow anything. With so many sovereigns around, the soul cultivation liquid was a fat piece of meat. How could he ask a pack of wolves? How would Night Sorrow reply? After leaving the small spatial world, the group returned to the mysterious Heaven world after a few teleportations. After reaching the mysterious Heaven world, the mysterious Heaven Lord released the people from the mysterious celestial realm and looked at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow nodded slightly. You can all go back. Go to the mysterious Heaven Palace later to find the Royal Lord and receive the rewards you deserve. The mysterious Heaven Lord nodded to Qian Qiangwei and the others. Brother Night Sorrow, come to my residence later. You can eat and drink. This is a must. Qian Qiangwei looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Oh? Forever free of charge. Sister Qiangwei, don't worry. I will definitely go. As long as the food is ready." Night Sorrow said with a smile. Qian Qiangwei nodded to Night Sorrow and left with her people. Qian Yu even waved at Night Sorrow. The mysterious Heaven Lord brought Night Sorrow to a courtyard in the mysterious Heaven Mountain in the mysterious Heaven City. Lord Monarch, here are the 3 drops of soul cultivation liquid that you need. Night Sorrow took out a bottle and placed it on the stone table in front of the two. The mysterious Heaven Lord took the bottle and after taking a deep breath, he opened it. I didn't expect you to be able to obtain this treasure. Night Sorrow nodded. It was not easy. It was almost a gamble with his life. The mysterious Heaven Lord placed 2 king-grade teleportation crystals in front of Night Sorrow. Chapter 1062. Thank you, Lord Monarch. Night Sorrow kept the king-grade teleportation crystal in his storage ring. Regardless of whether you obtained the soul cultivation fluid or not, I would have given you the teleportation crystal. Because of you, our profound sky world did not suffer any losses. Just based on this, the teleportation crystal should be yours. Now that I have taken your soul cultivation fluid, I owe you a favor. If you need any help or have any difficulties, come and find me. However, there is one thing you must understand. I do not wish to attack my own people from the profound sky world, the mysterious Heaven Monarch said. Don't worry, Lord Monarch. I will take care of the Sky South dynasty myself. When the time comes, please do not interfere. They owe me too much. Night Sorrow understood what Lord Monarch meant. He did not want to make a move on the people of the Sky Mystic world. In other words, he did not want to help Night Sorrow deal with the Sky South dynasty. Ha! I am happy. You have earned big this time, right? Lord Monarch Xian Tian said with a smile. His heart was tense just now because the soul cultivation liquid was too important. Now that he had calmed down, he was happy. Not bad. Night Sorrow smiled. He knew that there were some things that could not be hidden. Lord Monarch Xian Tian naturally knew that he had gained a lot from the soul cultivation liquid. You are honest enough. Do you want to drink wine or tea? Lord Monarch Xian Tian asked with a smile. Tea. I have some good tea this time. Lord Monarch, please have a taste. I have not tasted it yet. Night Sorrow took out the soul cultivation tea. Night Sorrow had already fried the soul cultivation tea. On the way out of the immeasurable cliff, he had fried it and put it in a jade jar. Good tea. What kind of good tea have I not tasted? Drink mine. King Xian Tian looked at Night Sorrow with a smile. Lord Monarch, you have not drunk this tea before. You will regret it if you don't drink it. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Tea in a jade jar. It looks like you value it a lot. Let me try yours, Black Heaven King said as he looked at the tea jar in Night Sorrow's hand. After that, Night Sorrow brewed a pot of soul-nourishing tea. After spending so much time with people like Xuexi and Zhu Jiuyun, who paid attention to their daily lives, Night Sorrow's skill in brewing tea was top-notch. The tea was ready in just a few moments. Xian Tian Monarch and Night Sorrow slowly sipped their tea. Then, they both closed their eyes quietly. Because of the soul-nurturing tea, the energy was nourishing their souls. 2 hours later, Lord Xian Tian opened his eyes. However, Night Sorrow was still meditating. 4 hours later, Night Sorrow also opened his eyes. Your soul power foundation is not bad. Black Heaven Monarch nodded at Night Sorrow. It's fine. Lord Monarch, this tea is good, right? Night Sorrow said with a smile. That's right. Let me ask you something. I can confirm that you still have the soul cultivation liquid and soul cultivation tea. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you for your treasures? Black Heaven Monarch asked. I'm not afraid. There are people who can kill me, but it will be very difficult to steal my treasures, Night Sorrow said with a smile. It seems like you have a lot of trump cards. Since you are so confident, I believe you, Black Heaven Monarch said. It's mainly because I believe in you, Lord Monarch. Night Sorrow nodded at Black Heaven Monarch. Right, have you thought about where to set up the inter-realm teleportation formation? Choose a good place. I hope to see the rise of the 9 regions world. Black Heaven Monarch changed the topic. Night Sorrow had no idea where to set up the inter-realm teleportation formation. In the end, Black Heaven Monarch gave Night Sorrow a suggestion. It was the 7 Nights Mountain. That was an empty area in the celestial realm. After conversing with Monarch Xian Tian for a while, Yishang left. Monarch Xian Tian gave Yishang a piece of advice. Yishang had to stabilize himself before entering the Sovereign King realm or hide first. There were too many people who wanted to make a move on him now. Night Sorrow knew that this was a sincere advice. Many monarchs might want to kill him. Even if they didn't know he had the soul cultivation liquid, they would still be suspicious. Therefore, it was normal for them to look for him. After having a big meal at Thousand Wild Roses Mansion, Yishang left Xiantian City for Big Dipper City and returned to the Celestial Master Pavilion. Seeing Night Sorrow return, Xuexi, Zhu Jiuyun, and Wu Lingfei were very happy. Night Sorrow had returned safely from a dangerous mission. Yishang had just sat down when Bei Xing arrived. You rascal, you came back without a word. I just came back. My butt hasn't warmed up yet. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Has the matter been resolved? Bei Xing asked. Yes, it has been resolved. Also, I have to leave for a while. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said. Why do you have this idea? It can't be that you're afraid of bringing trouble to us, right? Bei Xing looked at Yishan in surprise. No, I have something to do. I want to build a city. Night Sorrow spoke his mind. Bei Xing was sincere to him as a friend, so he treated him with sincerity. Building a city. That's a good idea. I can help you with anything. Bei Xing was very excited after hearing Night Sorrow's words. There's really no need for that. After I set up the teleportation formation, I'll get someone else to do it. By the way, is there anyone watching us now? Night Sorrow asked. No. Since the Infinite Soul Realm incident, there has been no one watching us in Big Dipper City. Bei Xing said. Then, Night Sorrow brought Bei Xing, Xuexi, and the other girls to 7 Night Mountain. 7 Night Mountain was a chain of mountains. The mountains towered into the clouds and were boundlessly magnificent. What a beautiful place. Why didn't I notice it before? Bei Xing said excitedly. The few of them surveyed the terrain and chose the location of the city to be built. Then, Knight Sorrow set up the teleportation formation and placed the king-grade teleportation crystal on it. The mysterious Heaven Sovereign's piece could be cut into two parts. In other words, it could be teleported to two distant worlds. In addition, the No Beginning Sovereign's piece was big. It could be cut into two main bodies and 4 or 5 parts. Knight Sorrow placed a big piece on the teleportation formation because it was enough for the 9-domain world to lead to here. All future development would start from here. Then, Knight Sorrow waved the sky splitter on the smoothest cliff of 7 Night Mountain and left 3 words, 7 Night City. Are we returning to the 9-domain world now? Xueshi looked at Knight Sorrow and asked. It might be dangerous. There will probably be people waiting in BG City. This time, I've caused a lot of trouble. Knight Sorrow said. Don't worry. Enter the spatial treasure and I'll bring you there. Even if there are people waiting, they can't let go of me. That will be a war between factions. Bei Xing said with a smile. All right. Bei Xing, I formally invite you to be a guest in my hometown. Knight Sorrow looked at Bei Xing and said. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Chapter 1 Inch Great. I'll take a look at your hometown. You should start building 7 Night City as soon as possible. I'm looking forward to the rise of the 9-domain world and 7 Night City. Bei Xing said. She was more excited than Knight Sorrow. Chapter 1063. After that, Bei Xing brought Long Ding to the 2 extreme cities teleportation array. The guards of the 2 extreme cities teleportation array stopped Bei Xing. I want to go to the 9 regions world. I'm Knight Sorrow's friend. Bei Xing said. Hearing that he was Knight Sorrow's friend, the guards let him go because Yen Tianpo's voice transmission had reached their ears. After 2 teleportations, Bei Xing arrived at the city in the sky. After exiting the city in the sky's teleportation array, Knight Sorrow, Xueshi, and the others came out of Long Ding. Comfortable. Knight Sorrow stretched his back. At this time, Sikong Chuyu, Yang Lei, and Aoi appeared in front of Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow did not say anything and went forward to hug each of them. Why did you come back? Yang Lei asked. Can you come back home and let me have a cup of tea first? Oh right, this is my friend Bei Xing. He's a very good friend. Knight Sorrow introduced. The 3 sisters are so beautiful. Meilon, Chiu, each has their own style. Knight Sorrow, you're so lucky. Bei Xing said with a smile. After that, the group went to Knight Sorrow's residence. Yang Lei also went to the Spacetime Pagoda to inform those who had not broken through that Knight Sorrow had returned. After a while, everyone who was cultivating in the Spacetime Pagoda came out. Seeing Knight Sorrow, everyone was very happy. Under his mother's Yu Qing's questioning, Knight Sorrow told her about his situation in the Sky Profound world. Of course, he did not say anything about the dangerous things. After that, Knight Sorrow told her about his thoughts and decision. Great! After we have our own city, we can establish a foothold in the Sky Profound world. Sky Underworld Saint said happily. Currently, we can only build and not make it public because we can't withstand the attacks of others. We can only wait for Knight Sorrow to enter the King Realm. Zhu Jiuyun said. That's right. We can't publicize it for now, but the construction of the city can begin, Knight Sorrow said. Without a King Realm cultivator, we don't have enough confidence. I don't know how long it will take for our faction to have a King Realm cultivator. It's quite depressing, Jun Xuanji sighed. Haha. This is the situation that no one is clear about. If it wasn't for Yi Shang wanting to achieve greater things, he might have already entered the Sovereign King Realm. Wu Lingfei smiled and explained Yi Shang's situation. Hearing Wu Lingfei's words, everyone was stunned. In their eyes, the Sovereign King realm was an unreachable realm. It was a realm that was very far away. In their hearts, the appearance of a sovereign king in the 9 regions world was only a wish, a thought. But now, Wu Lingfei said that Yi Shan was already trying to break through. Night Sorrow is now a dual attribute half-step king. Once he takes another step forward, a king of the same level would be no match for him, Zhu Juyin said. Good. Long Xianqing roared. This roar gave everyone a fright. Commander, leave the construction of the city to us. You can go and cultivate in peace, Long Xianqing said. Beijing Unspecified Currency version 1. After a discussion, everyone felt that it was suitable to place the transfer array in the city in the sky. This was because there were no outsiders here, and everyone was a core member of the 9 realms world. Everyone agreed, and Yi Shang set up the inter-realm teleportation array not far from the side of the mansion. Night Sorrow set up 1,000 derivation illusionary array outside the transfer array. At the same time, he told everyone that if anything happened, they just had to put in spirit stones and the array would activate. After installing the realm teleportation crystal, it lit up. Night Sorrow brought everyone to the 7 Nights Mountain to take a look. Everyone was very satisfied with this place, and felt that it was suitable to build the base of the 9 realms world here. Father, the transfer array is in the city in the sky, in the territory of the Night Moon Empire. There are more craftsmen in the Night Moon Empire building the 7 Night City, Night Sorrow said to Yi Wuyo. Alright, that's not a problem. But building a city requires planning and resources, Yi Wuyo nodded. There are spirit stones in here. Father, take them and deal with them as you see fit. Night Sorrow took out 5 to 6 storage rings. Son, we can use the resources of the 9 realms world directly, so we can't use the spirit stones, Yu Qing said with a smile. Night Sorrow, we can do this. Set up a secret transfer array in the Big Dipper city, and send your people there to purchase resources from other places, then bring them over, Beixing said. Yes. But the people who purchase the resources must be of a low cultivation level. If they are not strong enough, they will attract suspicion. Senior Long Xianqing, you can arrange it as you see fit. But the people who have been to the Tianding Gate must not show themselves, or they will be targeted. Also, set up a normal transfer array to connect to other places. The transfer array is currently a secret of the 7 Night City, so it must be hidden well, Night Sorrow said. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, everyone nodded. The transfer array is extremely valuable, and we cannot afford to lose it. Although there are rules of order that prevent the transfer array from being attacked, there must be people guarding it. If there is a problem, crush my spirit crystal. Night Sorrow gave a soul crystal to Long Xianqing. Then, he changed to another area and set up another transmission array. Since the transmission crystals were installed, the transmission arrays were separated from the ordinary ones. This way, it would be safer. Night Sorrow then asked Wu Lingfei and Zhu Julian's clones to stay here. Originally, Night Sorrow wanted Xueshi to stay as well, but Xueshi was not willing. She felt that Night Sorrow should have someone by his side. Then, Night Sorrow, Beixing, and Xueshi left the 7 Nights Mountain and returned to the Big Dipper city. Under Beixing's suggestion, Night Sorrow set up a transfer array in Beixing's private residence. There were guards in Beixing's residence, and Beixing instructed them to destroy the transfer array if a stranger attacked this place. Not long after Night Sorrow set up the transfer crystal, Long Xianqing, Xian Wenxiu, and the others arrived. Night Sorrow, one of your people should stay here. This way, it will be easier to identify the people entering and exiting the transfer array. The guards in my residence can fight, but they will not recognize your people, Beixing said. Then I will do it, Shang Luo said. Knight Sorrow set up another transfer crystal on the transfer array in Bei Xing's residence. He wanted to set up a transfer array in the Sage Master Pavilion as well. This way, even if someone was watching him, he could return to the 9 Domains world without any problems. Knight Sorrow felt that everything was almost done. He did not need to worry about the construction of the 7 Night City anymore. Yishang calmed down in the Celestial Master Pavilion, but the rest of the world was not. The sovereigns were all wondering whether Yishang had obtained the soul cultivation liquid or not. Although they had guessed that Yishang's chances of getting it were slim, there was still a chance. If there were only 3 drops, then other than the Black Heaven Sovereign, no one else would have a chance. But what if there were more than 3 drops? When a sovereign went to another sovereign's world, there had to be an explanation. If a sovereign went to the Black Celestial Realm to look for Night Sorrow, the Black Heaven Sovereign would not tolerate it. The Zhangyan Lord was considering whether to declare war on the Celestial Wonders world. This was because one-on-one battles were useless. Previously, the Dark Heaven Lord did not participate in the battle and he could not find Yishan. Now, it was even more unlikely. The second watch arrived. Chapter 1064. The Grey Cloud Sovereign did have this idea, but the consequences of starting a war between realms were very serious. He had to find allies. The Grey Cloud sect was not strong enough. The Grey Cloud Sovereign controlled a little more than half of the Sky Dome realm's strength because the Grey Cloud Sovereign controlled a portion of the Sky Dome realm's elite forces. In comparison, the Xian Celestial Realm only had the Xian Tian Sovereign. The entire Xian Celestial Realm was under his control. The Grey Cloud sect could not fight against an entire realm. After thinking for a while, the Grey Cloud Sovereign teleported to the Moon Demon realm. As soon as the Grey Cloud Sovereign arrived, the Moon Demon Sovereign appeared. Of course, it was his soul clone. Grey Cloud, why have you come to my Moon Demon realm? The Moon Demon Sovereign asked. You haven't appeared recently because of the 9 Heavens realm's troubles. Do you want to be as strong as the Divine Firmament Sovereign? There is a chance now, the Grey Cloud Sovereign said. The Moon Demon Sovereign's face turned black when he heard the Grey Cloud Sovereign mention the 9 Heavens realm. He had lost a lot of face because of the 2 sovereigns of the 9 Heavens realm. Soul Cultivation Liquid. The Divine Firmament Sovereign is much stronger than us because he used the Soul Cultivation Liquid to nourish his soul. His soul power is strong, and the will of heaven and earth is more effective than us. However, we might have a chance now, the Grey Cloud Sovereign said. If there is such a good thing, you will fight for it yourself. Will you think about others? I, the Moon Demon Sovereign, am not someone you can order around. The Moon Demon Sovereign narrowed his eyes at the Grey Cloud Sovereign. The Grey Cloud Sovereign thought for a while and told the Moon Demon Sovereign everything. You mean there is a high possibility? The Moon Demon Sovereign asked after thinking for a while. The Grey Cloud sect will naturally fight against the Xian Celestial Realm. Do you think I will do it if there is no possibility? The Grey Cloud Sovereign said. Have you thought about it? If we join forces and declare war against the Xian Celestial Realm, won't Xian Tian find other allies? Qi Yu, Hailan, and Tingxi have a good relationship with him. I will not do it. You can go back. The Moon Demon Sovereign waved his hand at the Grey Cloud Sovereign. The Grey Cloud Sovereign exhaled deeply as he sat on the teleportation array and left. The Demon Moon Sovereign wasn't willing to form an alliance. His plan for a realm war could only go down the drain. The Moon Demon Monarch sneered as he watched the Zhangyan Monarch leave. He would never fight to the death with the Mystic Celestial Realm. That would be a huge loss to himself. However, he would never let go of the opportunity to obtain the Soul Cultivation Liquid. After returning to the Demon Moon Hall, the Demon Moon Monarch gathered his subordinates, the Beginner King, and ordered them to capture Night Sorrow at all costs. Demon Moon Monarch's 3 junior kings immediately accepted the order and went to the mystic celestial realm to look for Night Sorrow. After the Tsangyan sovereign returned to the Tsangyan sect, he also made the same arrangements. Since the battle of forces could no longer continue, they could only continue with the one-on-one battles. However, he knew that the chances of success were very low. If Night Sorrow wanted to hide, it would be very difficult to find him. Furthermore, the Black Heaven Sovereign was also protecting him. Night Sorrow knew that the world would be very chaotic. Therefore, he and Xueshi stayed in the Sage Master Pavilion and lived a quiet life. Night Sorrow spent his days refining pills, refining weapons, and cultivating his combat skills. This was because he still needed to cultivate the combination of the 3 combat skills that he had just researched. There was still room for improvement. While Xueshi was taking care of Night Sorrow, she was also guiding Ningyun and Qiyue in their cultivation. Ningyun and Qiyue knew about the relationship between Xueshi and Night Sorrow. Although they were not husband and wife in name, they were no different from husband and wife. The two of them called Xueshi aunt. Night Sorrow also frequently guided Ningyun and Qiyue in their cultivation. He would explain his recent cultivation of energy techniques to the two of them. Master, after reaching the Saint Realm, one has to rely on the power of laws to fight. Does that mean that energy techniques are useless? Qiyue asked. In the past, I had the same idea as you. However, that is not the case. Let me demonstrate it to you. Night Sorrow said. In fact, after entering the Saint Realm, he had neglected the research and development of energy techniques. Night Sorrow pulled out the space splitter from behind him. With a shake of his hand, he executed the space whirling dragon kill. The combination of shock wave and wave force attack blasted a black hole the size of a water tank in the space in front of him. Looking at the shocked Ningyun and Qiyue, as well as Xueshi, whose eyes were filled with astonishment, Night Sorrow waved his hand and flattened the black hole. Main page, first post, what kind of combat skill is this? Xueshi asked. Space whirling dragon kill, space shock wave, and desolation shock force. Night Sorrow said. These days, when he was cultivating, his energy was restrained. Therefore, Xueshi and the others did not know the power of the combat skills that Night Sorrow cultivated. Master, there was a mistake in my understanding. This is too powerful. I have to cultivate it. Qiyue bowed to Night Sorrow. Take your time. It's fine as long as your understanding of the concept is correct. Night Sorrow said. After explaining the theory of energy exertion skills to Ningyun and Qiyue, Night Sorrow went to refine pills. He had collected a lot of pill materials in the Boundless Soul Realm. Half a month had passed. Ningyun and Qiyue planned to go out to gain experience because actual combat was the best way to temper people. Night Sorrow did not object to the two's experience. Night Sorrow also never objected to such things. What he could do was to guide them carefully and help them with some resources. Shortly after Ningyun and Qiyue left, Bei Xing came. She told Night Sorrow that the primary king of the Demon Moon Realm, Grey Cloud Sect, and Elemental Spirit Realm had all arrived in the mysterious Celestial Realm. Their target was obviously Night Sorrow. All of this was within Night Sorrow's expectations. Now that he was back, whether he got the soul cultivation liquid or not, the other party would make plans according to what he got. Regarding this, Night Sorrow felt that there was no need to pay attention to it. The courtyard he lived in had an array formation that isolated probing. It was difficult for the other party to find him. He still needed to refine pills and refine tools. Bei Xing supported Night Sorrow's idea. If Night Sorrow did not act recklessly, there would not be any trouble. The Grey Cloud sect did not get any benefits when they came to Big Dipper City last time. Now, they would not be too presumptuous in Big Dipper City. After 2 days of peace, Bei Xing brought news again. The news made Night Sorrow feel disgusted. The spies of the Sky South dynasty had once again acted as the lackeys of the Grey Cloud sect. Despicable people are really invincible. Xuexi's face was full of killing intent. Well, there will be a day to deal with them, so don't worry. Night Sorrow was now used to the despicable conduct of the Sky South dynasty. In addition, the primary king of the Scarlet Fire sovereign has also come from the Scarlet Fire world. The mysterious celestial realm has really become the core of the turmoil. Bei Xing shook her head helplessly. Night Sorrow just smiled. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. This was the portrayal of his current situation. What could he do? The only thing he could do was to stabilize and wait for his main body to break through. After his main body broke through, Night Sorrow's doppelganger's fighting strength would increase. Don't worry. The mysterious Heaven Sovereign has given the order. The Black Scale Army is already stationed at the teleportation array. Intermediate King can't enter. Chapter 1065. I see. That's much safer. It's very difficult for a beginner king to kill me. In the Boundless Soul Realm, it's not like I haven't escaped from an intermediate king. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Without an intermediate king, Night Sorrow wasn't too afraid. But in fact, sometimes, you don't look for trouble, but trouble comes to you. Night Sorrow wanted to cultivate quietly, but trouble came again. Ning Yun returned with serious injuries. Looking at the seriously injured Ning Yun, Night Sorrow frowned. Where's Chiyue? Master, I'm sorry. I didn't protect junior sister Chiyue well. Junior sister Chiyue was captured. Ning Yun knelt on the ground, bleeding from the corner of her mouth. Yi Shan's expression was very ugly. He attached great importance to Chiyue's safety. He stretched out his hand to help Ning Yun up and then sent a stream of energy to stabilize Ning Yun's injuries. Tell Master about the situation. Who captured your junior sister? Yanmen's sect. Junior sister lacked a main ingredient for alchemy, so we went to Yanmen mountain range to look for it. In the end, we were met by people from Yanmen sect's Dongyan mountain hole. They said that they wanted to capture junior sister Chiyue and give her to the young hall master as a concubine. After a fight, I was thrown off a cliff. I didn't die, so I came back to report, Ning Yun said. Night Sorrow took out a map and circled it, finding the location of Yanmen mountain range's Dongyan mountain. Exhaling, Night Sorrow put away the map and handed Ning Yun a bottle of pills. Take the pills to heal your injuries. Xuexi, take care of this place. I'll go with you. Xuexi said. No need. If it works, I can do it myself. If it doesn't work, it's useless for you to follow. Don't mention this to anyone for the time being. Night Sorrow entered the teleportation array after saying that. When he arrived at North Star's residence, Night Sorrow put on his mask. After leaving North Star's residence, Night Sorrow entered the teleportation array. Originally, Night Sorrow had planned to go to Seven Nights Mountain and then fly to Mount Dongyan. That would be relatively safe, but after some calculations, Night Sorrow felt that it was too much of a waste of time. Time was of the essence, so even if it was risky, he had to teleport. Night Sorrow entered the teleportation array and teleported away for a while. A beginner king frowned. A half-step king. This doesn't match with Big Dipper City's half-step king. Could it be him? However, by the time he entered the teleportation array, Night Sorrow had already disappeared. After a few teleportations, Night Sorrow arrived at Yanmen City. Then, he flew towards Dongyan Mountain. There was a teleportation array in Yanmen City that led to the entrance of Dongyan Mountain. Night Sorrow didn't teleport there directly because he felt that it would attract attention and wouldn't be beneficial for saving people. After flying to Mount Dongyan, Night Sorrow activated the 9 regions origin beads and began searching with his soul power. Saving Chiyue was his top priority. If something happened to her, it would be useless even if he massacred the gate of Yenshan sect. In Night Sorrow's heart, the gate of Yenshan sect wasn't as important as Chiyue. After probing the teleportation array, Night Sorrow waved Sky Splitter and destroyed the teleportation array. He knew that a battle was inevitable, so he destroyed the teleportation array first. After destroying the teleportation array, Night Sorrow continued to investigate Mount Dongyan. However, at that moment, someone had already discovered Night Sorrow. It was a 1-star king. "Who are you? How dare you act presumptuously in my Yenmen mountain?" The 1-star king roared at Night Sorrow. "I don't have time to deal with you now." "Scram!" Night Sorrow growled. Night Sorrow used the spatial law to increase his speed and searched for traces of Chiyue in Mount Dongyan. The 1-star king chased after him, but his speed was on a completely different level from Night Sorrow's. Yan Fei was shocked. He was a king, but his speed was far inferior to Night Sorrow, who was a half-step king. If he couldn't catch up to Night Sorrow, then no one in Gate of Yenshan sect's Mount Dongyan could contend with Night Sorrow. While Night Sorrow dodged Yan Fei's pursuit, his soul power swept through the entrance of Mount Dongyan. He still hadn't found Chiyue. When he couldn't find Chiyue on the main peak of Mount Dongyan, Night Sorrow began to circle the main peak in search. As for Yan Fei, the Earth Attribute 1-star king, Night Sorrow didn't care. He couldn't catch up to him at all. When he flew to the side peak, Night Sorrow's eyes were filled with anger. He found traces of Chiyue. In the hall of a courtyard, Chiyue was hung up. Her body was covered in blood. 2 women were waving leather whips at her. Another man was sitting on an armchair, drinking wine and saying unbearable words. What made Night Sorrow's guts burst was that Chiyue's right arm and right leg were twisted irregularly. It was obvious that they had been broken. "I don't agree." "If you don't agree, we'll play once." "Although it's a pity, I can accept it," said the man sitting on the armchair. He was Yan Fei's grandson, Yan Jinghua. Hee. You're overthinking it. At most, I'll die. Don't even think about getting your way. Chiyue sneered. Even if you die, I'll still get my way. Yan Jinghua laughed sinisterly. Master. Uncle, you'll take revenge for Chiyue. Chiyue won't be able to stay by your side to make tea for you anymore. Chiyue raised her head and muttered. She planned to end her own life. She didn't have any regrets because she knew that Night Sorrow would take revenge for her. In her heart, Night Sorrow wasn't just her master, but also her uncle. Master will take revenge for you in front of your eyes today. As soon as Night Sorrow finished speaking, he appeared in the hall. Night Sorrow waved his space splitter, and the 2 women holding the leather whips had their heads chopped off. Night Sorrow waved his left arm, cutting the chains on Chiyue's body and pulling her to his side. Master, I want him to die. Chiyue grabbed Night Sorrow's robes with her left hand and said to Yan Jinghua. Good. Master promises you that today, rivers of blood will flow here. Night Sorrow nodded to Chiyue. Shameless boasting. A half-step king is just an ant in front of a king. Don't you know that? Yan Fei stood in front of Yan Jinghua and held his battle saber as he looked at Night Sorrow. Enter Master's dragon cauldron and watch the battle. Night Sorrow completely ignored Yan Fei. Thank you for your hard work, Master. Chiyue's eyes were filled with tears. Her heart was filled with gratitude. When she was young and lonely, Night Sorrow appeared and made her feel warmth. He led her on the path of cultivation. Today, Night Sorrow appeared at the most critical moment. He didn't know how strong the other party was, and he had appeared just to save her. He waved his hand and moved Chiyue into the dragon cauldron. After letting the cauldron's weapon spirit heal her, Night Sorrow turned to look at Yan Fei and Yan Jinghua. Damn it. What do you think Yan Men sect is? Yan Fei pointed his battle saber at Night Sorrow and roared. Although Yan Men's sect has a bad reputation, it has nothing to do with me. However, you shouldn't have touched my disciple. Today, I will kill you to get rid of evil. Night Sorrow let out a breath and said. Yan Men's sect was the same as Tiannan dynasty. They were cruel to their affiliated worlds. Night Sorrow hated it, but it had nothing to do with him. However, he couldn't tolerate Chiyue being in such a miserable state. The only original version, the others are all pirated. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, the angry Yan Fei waved his battle saber and charged at Night Sorrow. Then die. Night Sorrow used Space Whirling Dragon Kill to stab at Yan Fei's battle saber. Night Sorrow's Space Whirling Dragon Kill, which was supported by Space Will, directly hit Yan Fei's battle saber. Chapter 1066. After that, Night Sorrow entered the tent that Tianyu had set up. Wu Lingfei, Zhu Jiuyun, Xue Shi, and his 3 wives all entered as well. Night Sorrow lowered his head and fell into deep thought. 13. What are you thinking about? Aoi asked as she brewed a pot of tea. Should my original body stop cultivating and rush back to join the battle? This way, our overall strength will increase. Night Sorrow exhaled and said. No. Long Xianqing and Xian Wenxiu entered the tent. Wu Lingfei, Zhu Jiuyun, and the others who were originally sitting also stood up. They did not agree with Night Sorrow's idea. Commander, the improvement of your original body is not only your personal achievement, but also the achievement of the 9 regions world. Unless it is absolutely necessary, unless the 9 regions world is destroyed, you cannot destroy your own future. Long Xianqing said. All right. If the situation is not good, then we will talk about it. Night Sorrow nodded. He was also conflicted about interrupting his original body's cultivation. Night Sorrow felt that the variable in this calamity of the 9 regions world was whether the Heaven-Sealing Palace, which was controlled by his clone, could suppress the evil world's attack. If it could, then they could fight steadily, and victory would be in the 9 regions world. If it could not, then the battle would have to be fought quickly. 3 days passed, and the evil world arrived. It came from the bottom of the 9 regions world and connected to it. At this time, Night Sorrow's 9 regions origin pearl was transferred to his clone in the Heaven-Sealing Palace. Some resources were also kept by the Heaven-Sealing Palace. As the 2 worlds connected, the 9 regions world shook violently. This was the attack of the evil world, and it wanted to break through the 9 regions world. Night Sorrow's clone that had fused with the Heaven-Sealing Palace controlled the Heaven-Sealing Palace, which was also the 9 regions origin pearl, and began to suppress the evil world. With the support of the 9 regions origin pearl, Night Sorrow could completely mobilize the 9 regions world's origin energy, and fiercely suppress the evil world's attack. With Night Sorrow's powerful suppression, the 9 regions world stabilized. Feeling the consumption of his own energy and the 9 regions origin energy, Night Sorrow felt that he could hold on for 3 years. Such a situation calmed Night Sorrow's heart. 3 years was not a rush, and he could deal with the upcoming battle steadily. After the 9-domain world stabilized, Night Sorrow turned to look at the participants of the 9-domain world. The situation isn't bad. If we don't count the effects of the battle, I can guard this place for 3 years. In other words, we have to resolve this calamity within 3 years. 3 years is not a rush. Commander, you can arrange the battles. Long Xianqing said. Night Sorrow looked at the group of people and said, First, we have to kill. Kill all the life in the evil world, and get the evil world's origin energy. Then, we will win. However, The evil world is a manifestation of the heavenly Tao's calamity, and the world's origin energy will not be so easily found and destroyed. I will take care of this mission. After everyone enters, we will fight steadily and steadily, slowly nibbling away at the enemy's strength. The more the enemy suffers, the less impact it will have on the 9 regions world. After hearing Knight Sorrow's words, everyone felt a little more confident. They were worried that the 9 regions world would not be able to resist the evil world's attack, and the battle would be very hasty. The current situation was not bad. Knight Sorrow brought everyone to the bottom of Clear Sky Mountain, and then tore the space apart, opening a spatial tunnel, and brought everyone into the evil world. This is not very convenient. Xuexi, go to the Heaven Sealing Hall and find my clone to get 300 Saint Spirit Stones. You go to Big Dipper City and find Beixing to help me get 2 low-grade World Transfer Stones. Knight Sorrow said to Xuexi. Knight Sorrow felt that this was a little inconvenient. After setting up a World Transfer Array, the war would be much more convenient. As for wasting World Transfer Crystals, that would not be a problem. When the World Transfer Array was not needed, it could be dismantled. In addition, Saint Grade and Saint King Grade World Transfer Stones were not very expensive. A Saint Grade World Transfer Stone could be bought for a few dozen Saint Spirit Stones, and a Saint King Grade World Transfer Stone was only worth 100 Saint Spirit Stones. Knight Sorrow could afford it. Nodding to Knight Sorrow, Xuexi left through the spatial tunnel that Knight Sorrow had torn open. Spies, go out and scout. The rest of you, set up camp. Since we have time, we will advance steadily. Knight Sorrow said. Knight Sorrow entered the tent that the members of the God-slaying team had set up. Sitting in the command tent, Knight Sorrow sorted out the information he had received. The various teams were already scouting and killing the evil creatures. Lu Qin was in charge of the communication crystals of the leaders of the teams. In a battle in a different world, the use of soul crystals was the same as the use of communication crystals. Different amounts of communication crystals would send different messages. 1 communication crystal was a call for help. 2 communication crystals meant that they could not send help. It was extremely dangerous. Because there were many teams, managing the information was not complicated. Knight Sorrow specifically assigned Lu Qin to manage it. The members of the God-slaying team followed Wu Lingfei into battle. Knight Moon's team followed Yi Qianhua and Yi Tian into battle. Knight Sorrow had instructed them not to be too far away from the camp. This way, he would be able to provide support as quickly as possible. This was also the reason why he did not participate in the battle. This was the first time Knight Sorrow had experienced such a situation. In the past, when there were battles in the 9-domain world, he had always been at the forefront. He had never been at the back like this. However, he had to oversee the entire situation now. After 4 days, the teams in the 9-domain world had cleared out an area of 10,000 miles. Xuexi had also returned. Xuexi had brought 2 Saint Grade teleportation crystals. Beixing had helped her buy them. Knight Sorrow had set up a teleportation array between the 9-domain world and the evil world. He had also arranged for Black Shang to set up a teleportation array between Clear Sky City and Clear Sea City. This way, they could quickly enter the battlefield. Beixing had also asked Xuexi to bring Knight Sorrow a few books and letters. They were records of the world's growth tribulations. After reading through them, Knight Sorrow understood a little. The world's growth tribulations were a test for the people of the current generation. However, it was also an opportunity. If one could survive the tribulations and win the War of the Worlds, the participants would receive the blessings of the world's origin. Of course, the extent of the blessings depended on one's contributions. The blessings of the world's origin would increase one's life level. It would also strengthen one's soul foundation. It was a rare opportunity. After closing the book, Night Sorrow understood that danger and opportunity were relative. They existed all the time. Many monarchs had experienced the test of the world's tribulations and achieved great things. Win. We must win. Regardless of how much we gain, our roots cannot be destroyed. No matter what, we must have a home. Night Sorrow looked at Xueshi and said. We can definitely do it because we are united, Xueshi said. #the only authentic copy, the others are pirated copies. However, the book also said that the life forms in the evil world are all energy bodies. Their level is higher than the world's tribulations. Chapter 1067. You can also fight above your level. Even if it's a 1-star or 2-star king, we won't be afraid. We can't possibly fight a 3-star or 4-star king, right? Don't worry, we can definitely do it. Xueshi looked at Night Sorrow and said. I'm confident too. Let's fight. Night Sorrow said. Night Sorrow listened to the reports every day and knew a little about the situation. The creatures of the evil world were all energy bodies, but they had Dan beads and intelligence. They fought crazily without any regard for their lives. Yishan's command tent also kept moving forward, following the footsteps of the battle team. Night Sorrow didn't care about the fish that slipped through the net. A few fish that slipped through the net couldn't do anything. However, he left Xueshi behind to guard the teleportation array. Before Xueshi returned, Night Sorrow wanted to wait for the situation to stabilize before going in alone to see if he could find the source of the evil world. However, after reading the letter that Northstar had found, he knew that this method would not work. If he did not destroy the other party's strength, the evil world's origin would not appear. This was a comprehensive test for the 9 regions world, and there were no loopholes. As the team from the 9-domain world advanced, the array masters from the Ultimate Celestial Tower and the Ultimate Assassin Hall also set up their transportation arrays to keep up with them. Logistical support and manpower could keep up during a battle. Night Sorrow was a little anxious. The other teams in front were fighting, but he could only fight at the back. He couldn't fight at the front line. On this day, while Night Sorrow was reading the letter, Lu Qin entered Night Sorrow's tent. Commander, Elder Wu is asking for help. She's probably in trouble. What direction? How far is it? Night Sorrow asked anxiously. Wu Lingfei had always taken care of him, so he valued her a lot. He had special feelings for her. He definitely didn't want anything to happen to her. Southeast. I can't tell the exact distance. Lu Qin said. Just as Lu Qin finished speaking, Night Sorrow's body cut through space and disappeared from Lu Qin's sight. Night Sorrow pushed his speed to the limit in order to reach the battlefield as soon as possible. That way, Wu Lingfei wouldn't be hurt. In Night Sorrow's heart, Wu Lingfei was a strong person. She wouldn't ask for help unless she had no other choice. After a quarter of an hour, Night Sorrow had covered a distance of several thousand li. His soul power was fully unleashed as he searched for any signs of battle. After flying for more than 4,000 miles, Night Sorrow discovered the location of Wu Lingfei's group. The situation was very urgent. Wu Lingfei's original body and avatar were resisting the attacks of a black-clothed man. Half-step king, this black-robed man was a half-step king. Wu Lingfei, who was a star saint king, naturally could not withstand him. She was already in a precarious situation, with the danger of dying at any time. Her waist had already been stabbed, with blood flowing out. It was obvious that her original body was injured, and the Golden Phoenix flexible armor had also been cut open. The members of the god-slaying team were also battered and exhausted. They were being attacked by a group of high-level tamed beasts in blood-red clothes. Damn it! Let me deal with Aunt Fei. Night Sorrow's body flickered as he used Space Splitter. Next, he used space-twisting dragon kill to attack the black-robed man. Seeing Night Sorrow attack, the black-robed man directly swung his blade. He had no intention of retreating. His eyes were fixed on the retreating Wu Lingfei. He planned to repel Night Sorrow and then continue attacking Wu Lingfei. With a muffled sound, the black-robed man was directly sent flying by Night Sorrow. Not to mention that he was only a fire-attributed half-step monarch. Even if it was a 1-star or 2-star monarch, Yi Shan wouldn't be afraid. After sending the black-robed man flying, Night Sorrow's protective barrier slashed and chased after the black-robed man. Then, he used Heavenly Wasteland Absolute Kill. With the sound of weapons clashing, the black-robed man was sent flying again by Night Sorrow. Blood continuously spurted from his mouth. The black-robed man's cultivation was inferior to Night Sorrow's. In addition, he was affected by Night Sorrow's will of space and will of time. The speed and energy of his blade were greatly reduced. Therefore, he naturally didn't have an easy time facing Night Sorrow's attack. After sending the black-robed man flying, Night Sorrow directly used Soul Extinguishing Slash. How could the black-robed man, who was already severely injured, resist Night Sorrow's Soul Extinguishing Slash? Night Sorrow didn't even need to replenish his energy. The crescent blade of Soul Extinguishing Slash directly shattered his divine orb. The absolute kill was completed. Supra P New Chapter, Section Q above. After killing the black-robed man, Night Sorrow started to attack the sage-level opponents who were wearing blood-red clothes and had tamed beasts. As Night Sorrow's body flashed, the blood-robed men besieging the god-slaying team fell down one after another. Night Sorrow killed them almost one by one. The god-slaying team also started their desperate counterattack. With Night Sorrow's arrival, they had a backbone. The battle ended in the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Night Sorrow arrived in front of Wu Lingfei, who was leaning against a tree and resting. "Aunt Fei, how are you?" "Fortunately, I managed to hold on until you arrived." Wu Lingfei smiled and nodded at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow reached out and grabbed Wu Lingfei's hand. He used his spirit energy to check her condition. His expression immediately turned ugly. Wu Lingfei's injuries were very serious. Her internal organs had been severely injured. The wound on her waist was emitting a fiery aura. In addition, Night Sorrow could sense that Wu Lingfei's blood was depleted. "Aunt Fei, did you burn your blood essence to fight?" Night Sorrow controlled the dragon cauldron and poured medicine spirit energy into Wu Lingfei. "Yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to hold on. The consequences would have been very serious. Our people would have been greatly injured." Wu Lingfei nodded. Night Sorrow understood that it wasn't easy for Wu Lingfei to hold on until he arrived. After all, the difference between a Star Sage King and a Half-Step King was too great. This was also because Wu Lingfei had the life attribute. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Yi Shan bent down and picked up Wu Lingfei. He enlarged the dragon cauldron and put all the members of the god-slaying team into it. Then, he controlled the dragon cauldron's medicine spirit to heal Wu Lingfei's wounds while flying at high speed. After returning to the camp's command tent, Night Sorrow placed Wu Lingfei on the bed where he was meditating. He released the members of the god-slaying squad and gave out healing pills for them to heal. Night Sorrow grabbed Wu Lingfei's arm and used his world's origin energy to heal her. At this time, Wu Lingfei's pale face flushed red. Because Night Sorrow was healing her like this, she didn't have any secrets from Night Sorrow. Seeing Night Sorrow's tightly closed eyes and furrowed brows, Wu Lingfei also closed her eyes. She guided Night Sorrow's energy to move around her injuries. An hour later, concubine Wu Lingfei cut off Yi Shan's energy. Night Sorrow stood up and took 2 steps back. Wu Lingfei also opened her eyes. "Aunt Fei, I'm fine. I'll be fine after resting for 2 days." Wu Lingfei tidied up her skirt. Because her skirt had been cut open at her waist, the wound had healed with the help of Night Sorrow's energy. However, the surrounding snow-like skin was already exposed. Chapter 1068. Auntie Faye, I was a bit rash just now. It was mainly because I was a bit anxious. Night Sorrow also felt that it was a bit inappropriate. It's nothing. Auntie Faye knows you're in a hurry. Otherwise, you wouldn't have arrived 15 minutes after Auntie Faye crushed the soul crystal. Wu Lingfei shook her head as she looked at the embarrassed Yishang. It's good that there's no big problem. I was really afraid. If something happened to Auntie Faye, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. Night Sorrow looked at Wu Lingfei and said. He was really afraid that he had arrived too late. He was afraid that something would happen to Wu Lingfei. When he arrived, he saw that Wu Lingfei was still fighting. Night Sorrow felt a lot more at ease. As long as she was still alive, he didn't need to worry. Everything was not too late. Everything could be done in time. Night Sorrow, don't think too much. This time, Auntie Faye's luck was a bit bad. It's nothing. Wu Lingfei said. Night Sorrow sighed. Now was the tribulation of the 9 regions world. Everyone needed to fight. Although he was worried, he couldn't let anyone withdraw from the battle. At this time, his parents were fighting in front. It's really nothing. Wu Lingfei supported herself on the bed and was about to stand up. Auntie Faye, don't move. Rest for a few days first. Night Sorrow hurriedly helped Wu Lingfei lie down on the bed to rest. Seeing that Wu Lingfei was resting, Night Sorrow came out of the tent and looked at the situation of the other god-slaying team. After asking, Night Sorrow found out that fortunately, Tianyu and Yi Mei were fast and could save the others. Yun Huang, Liang Yu and Ling Long were also strong and could help the others. That was why no one had died. Night Sorrow was a bit glad that none of his brothers or sisters had died. Otherwise, it would be hard for him to accept. After letting everyone rest, Night Sorrow found Lu Qin and told her to inform all the teams that they were not allowed to leave the big tent. Lu Qin nodded. She already knew that Wu Ling Concubine's team had almost met with a problem. Now, Night Sorrow had made such arrangements so that they could be rescued in time. In addition, Yishang also left Zhu Jiuyun at the campsite. This way, when he went out to help, Zhu Jiuyun would be able to hold on for a while and buy time for him to rush over when the other teams were in trouble. In the following period of time, Night Sorrow became busy because the deeper they went, the stronger the life forms in the evil world. Not to mention the half-step king, even if a peak stage Saint King appeared, it would be a threat to the team that went out to battle. Night Sorrow's command tent was also constantly moving forward. All the teams that went out to fight were fanned out with the command tent as the center. They couldn't be too far away, because Night Sorrow was worried that he wouldn't be able to rescue them in time. The area of the evil world was about the same as the 9 regions world. Even if they advanced 10,000 miles every day, it wouldn't be enough to clear it out. But now, Night Sorrow didn't have a good idea. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow thought of another way. He took out all the poison materials he collected in the Boundless Soul world and refined them into poison. He also refined the corresponding antidote. Then, under Night Sorrow's arrangement, Lu Qin distributed the poison and antidote pills. In addition, Night Sorrow made a batch of soul crystals and gave them to the teams that went out. This way, the group would be further away from the command tent. Night Sorrow calculated for a moment. With the poison stalling for time, he would be able to fly 15,000 kilometers in an hour. This meant that he would be able to provide support within 15,000 kilometers. In the following days, although Night Sorrow didn't take the initiative to go out to battle, he was still the busiest and most tired. The teams led by Yi Qianhua, Yi Tian, Long Xianxing, Xian Wenxiu, Xuexi, Wu Lingfei, and the others needed Night Sorrow to go out and support them every day. At such a distance, Zhu Jiuyun's support couldn't keep up. She also led people out to battle. Night Sorrow realized that compared to the evil world, the strength of the cultivators in the Nine Regions world was still lacking. The Nine Regions world was much weaker. They could fight now because the people of the Nine Regions world were like a rope, clenched into a fist. In comparison, the power of the evil world was scattered. As for which level was weaker, Night Sorrow already had a feeling. The Nine Regions world was still okay for the saints and paragons, but the Saint Kings were not good. The quantity and quality could not keep up. However, Night Sorrow also knew that the current situation of the Nine Regions world was already very good. One had to know that 10,000 years ago, there were only 3 Saint Kings. After spending every day flying and rescuing people, Night Sorrow was also a little tired, but he had to persevere. The people of the Nine Regions world were also heavily injured and had died in battle. Night Sorrow's heart ached, but there was nothing he could do about it. When there was war, there would be death. Night Sorrow hoped and worked hard to reduce the number of deaths. After all, these were the elites of the Nine Regions world, and they were all elites who were willing to fight to the death for the Nine Regions world. They were all worthy of respect. When Xuexi was injured, Night Sorrow's heart ached. However, he could only endure this pain because the battle had to continue. The battle had been going on for half a year, and dozens of people had died in battle, including a few saints. The Saint Kings had not fallen because Night Sorrow had been able to rescue them in time every time. Night Sorrow arranged for Xuexi to go to Big Dipper City to find Beixing and ask him to help buy poison materials. He also notified Qian Qiangwei and Qian Yu. He believed that they would help him. Part 2 Chapter THRE Night Sorrow was a person, and there were things that he could not do. However, it was war now, and war meant that there was nothing he could not do. Everything was for the sake of victory. Night Sorrow respected and cared about the lives around him. Even if he lost his reputation, he had to protect the lives of the people of the Nine Regions world. As for the use of poison, Night Sorrow had emphasized that it was used to save lives and to stall for time. Beixing was very worried and anxious about the war in the Nine Regions world. If Night Sorrow had any news, she would immediately help. As for the various sovereigns' operation to capture Night Sorrow, it was still in progress. However, it was mainly carried out in the Yanmen sect. Other than Beixing and a few others, no one knew that Night Sorrow was no longer in the sky profound world. With people dying in battle, Night Sorrow's heart ached. His main body was still in a state of enlightenment, and this made him feel helpless. Night Sorrow's main body was much stronger than his doppelganger. He also had a king artifact in his hands, which could increase the power of his attacks. Half a year had passed, and the Nine Regions world's team had advanced 7 million miles. They had killed countless evil lives. Night Sorrow had killed dozens of peak stage Saint Kings and half-step King Saints. Although he did not lead a team to battle, Night Sorrow's efficiency was the highest. On this day, Night Sorrow was drinking tea when he felt his soul crystal shatter. Following that, he quickly flew in the direction he sensed. Although he did not know which team it was, Night Sorrow was very anxious. This was because unless it was extremely urgent, no one would be willing to ask for help. Night Sorrow's help was to save lives. Using Night Sorrow's help could lead to the deaths of members of the other teams. After rushing to the scene, Night Sorrow's eyes were filled with rage. This was because Night Moon's team was in trouble. His left arm was broken, and his ribs were exposed. Chapter 1069. Yi Tian was heavily injured, and Yi Linghuan was also injured. With a flash of his body, Yi Shang began to slaughter this peak stage Saint King. After a few moves, the team led by this peak Saint King was destroyed by Night Sorrow. Then, he gave Yi Tian and Yi Linghuan the life spirit liquid and healing pills. Then, he brought the group back to the command tent and arranged for people to start treating them. Fortunately, they were all external injuries. It would only take a few days to recover. Commander, these are all external injuries. We have poison to protect ourselves. We have enough time to ask for help, Yi Tian said. Night Sorrow nodded. He was very relieved that no important people had died. Worried, Yi Shang was still worried in his heart. If one walked by the river often, they would lose their shoes. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow communicated with the Dragon Cauldron and went to Yi Qianhua's team that had returned. Night Sorrow's 3 wives and parents were in Yi Qianhua's team. Holding the Dragon Cauldron, Night Sorrow handed it to Sikong Chuyu. I communicated with the Dragon Cauldron. Now, take it and use it. No. This is your protective treasure. It can't reduce your battle power. Sikong Chuyu shook her head and did not take the Dragon Cauldron. Take it. This is not just for you, but for my parents and family. My body's defense is very high. Saint Kings can't break it at all. Also, take this 7 extremes poison smoke. Night Sorrow gave the 7 extremes poison smoke and the antidote to Sikong Chuyu. Night Sorrow did not feel that he was being selfish with this arrangement. He had done his best for the 9 regions world. In order to not let the people of the 9 regions world die, he had also done his best. Night Sorrow valued his family the most. He had also taken out his own resources and protective treasures. After thinking for a while, Sikong Chuyu did not refuse because she knew that this was not her problem. It concerned the whole family. After making the arrangements, Night Sorrow felt at ease. The battle continued. The battlefield continued to advance rapidly. Night Sorrow went out to help every day. The main members did not die, but injuries were inevitable. The people of the 9 domains world were resilient. After recovering from their injuries, they would continue fighting. As the battle progressed, Night Sorrow's avatar in the Heaven Sealing Hall felt more relaxed. Once the evil world's life forms were destroyed, the world's origin power would decrease, and the impact on the 9 domains world would weaken. The origin of a world was closely related to the life within the world. A barren, lifeless world would have extremely weak origin power. As the evil world's origin power weakened, the impact it had on the 9 domains world weakened as well. In other words, there was more and more time. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow decided to change tactics. When all the teams returned at night, he gathered everyone together. Commander, do you have any orders? Long Xianxing asked. I plan to change my strategy. We need to be more stable. Night Sorrow nodded and spoke his thoughts. Commander, we know that you are doing this for everyone's good, but this is a war between worlds. It is everyone's business. Everyone has the determination and belief to die in battle. Xian Wenxiu said. Let me talk about the current situation first. Because our killing effect is significant, the evil world's origin power has weakened by 20%. Even if we don't achieve anything in the future, my avatar can control the Heaven Sealing Hall and suppress the evil world for 5 years. We will have more results in the future, so this time will be longer and longer. Therefore, we need to be more stable and avoid unnecessary sacrifices. This is the problem that we need to consider. Night Sorrow explained the current situation. So that's the case. What are your plans? Wu Lingfei asked. Above, I will first clean up the area where you will lead the team to fight. I will clean up the evil creatures above the Saint King rank. After that, you will lead the team to clean up. Night Sorrow said his plan. This will slow down the cleaning speed. Taishu Yen thought of the drawbacks. It will slow down by a third, close to half the speed. However, this is within our acceptable range. Night Sorrow said. At this time, everyone nodded. This tactic was correct. The only drawback was that Night Sorrow would have to work a lot harder. After that, while everyone was resting, Night Sorrow spread out in a fan shape with the camp as the center and explored a distance of 30,000 kilometers. This exploration lasted for about half a day. After Night Sorrow returned, he sat down to meditate and recover. The other teams then began to fight. The situation today was very good. There were no requests for reinforcements. Commander, this is not bad. You wasted time exploring and cleaning up the hard bones, but you also wasted time in providing reinforcements. Lu Qin came to Night Sorrow's tent. And that is indeed the case. I will continue to explore. If there is a request for reinforcements, I will rush over in time. After Yi Shan finished speaking, he continued to investigate. Lu Qin had arranged for the advancement of the campsite, so it was also a straight line. The other teams would also gather at the new campsite. After flying for 30,000 kilometers and reaching the critical point of yesterday's exploration, Night Sorrow began a new round of exploration. The following battles were carried out according to Night Sorrow's current tactics. Everything was going smoothly. Everyone knew that Night Sorrow had put in a lot of effort in order for this to go smoothly. Night Sorrow went out to fight every day and explored a large area. What made him regretful was that the evil world was a calamity for the 9-domain world. There were no resources to be obtained or collected. The only thing he could do when he went out was to fight. Night Sorrow felt that his hard work was worth it in exchange for the safety of the other teams. When Night Sorrow was fighting for the 9-domain world, many people in the profound sky world were very depressed. This was because they couldn't find any traces of Night Sorrow. If they couldn't find any traces of Night Sorrow, then the junior king who was investigating Night Sorrow wouldn't be able to answer to his superiors. Only Bei Xing knew what was going on. She had been secretly laughing. She felt that everyone who looked for Night Sorrow was a little stupid. There were no smart people. She also knew that the people involved couldn't see clearly. They were all blinded by benefits. As Night Sorrow's trusted friend, Bei Xing was doing everything that Night Sorrow couldn't do. Big Dipper City's people were already collecting poisons all over the profound celestial realm for Night Sorrow. In addition, Bei Xing was also helping Shang Luo with the construction of 7 Night Cities resources. Big Dipper King supported his daughter's actions. He thought highly of Night Sorrow, so he was also willing to help Night Sorrow on his path of growth. The Tsangyan monarch was very angry. Now was the best time to deal with Night Sorrow. If he could capture Night Sorrow, there was a possibility of obtaining the soul-cultivating liquid. In addition, killing Night Sorrow's doppelganger could affect Night Sorrow's main body. If this continued, Night Sorrow could very well take the step to become a king. All the sovereigns knew that Night Sorrow had already comprehended 90% of the will of space. As long as he kicked out again, he would become a king of space. No one would have thought that Night Sorrow was currently studying the will of time and had even reached the entry level. Tianding Gate. Elder Xiang's doppelganger was guarding the Tianding Gate, while his main body was at Danding Peak. He wouldn't allow any king to enter the Tianding Gate. The Medicine Valley, which was now Danding Peak, was a branch of the Tianding Gate. He naturally had to protect it well. The second update has arrived. I'm going out with my family for a walk. It might take a week. I'm an author, but I'm also a son, a husband, and a father. My family is more important than anything else in my heart. I'll do my best to ensure that the updates are timely. I'll also write when I'm at the hotel. 4 updates a day is not a low number, so don't force me to update more. Chapter 1070. With old Xiang there, no one who was looking for Night's Sorrow could go to the Tianding Gate to cause trouble. If old Xiang didn't let anyone enter the Tianding Gate, who could force their way into Danning Peak? Forcing their way in would lead to a battle. If a king was no match for old Xiang and was killed, could the monarchs behind them step in? The mysterious sky monarch of the profound sky world wouldn't just stand by and watch. If a king from another world caused trouble for another king in the profound sky world and was killed, no one could do anything about it. The mysterious sky monarch wasn't a good-tempered person either. Second sister, I wonder where that brother of ours ran off to. He really knows how to hide. Qian Yu and Qian Qiangwei were drinking tea together in Xiantian Sky City's Qian Qiangwei's residence. Who knows? He's so good at hiding. If he wants to hide, he'll definitely hide well. This is a good thing. When his original body in the Nine Heavens Pagoda comprehends something, he'll be a king. A king won't be able to do anything to him, Qian Qiangwei said. Gap. Slowly, the gap between us will grow. I'm also going to cultivate in the heaven and earth manner. If he's a king and we're saint kings, we won't be able to play together even if we want to, Qian Yu said. Go. We'll have to pass this hurdle eventually. Although many saint kings in the history of our Xiantian Sky dynasty haven't been able to take this step, the great ancestors said that our Xiantian Sky dynasty will usher in a period of rapid development. Perhaps we can do it. Qian Qiangwei nodded. Most of the direct descendants of the Xiantian Sky dynasty were of the wind and lightning attribute. They had a secret place of the dynasty, the heaven and earth manor where the will of wind and lightning manifested. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. The war in the Nine Regions world had gone smoothly. Night Sorrow's heart had calmed down a lot because he felt that the suppression of his clone in the Heaven Sealing Hall wasn't so difficult anymore. Yi Shang arranged for Lu Qin to have the people from the Nine Regions deliver some food and wine so that everyone could rest for half a month. Everyone could endure a year of high-intensity battle, but physical and mental exhaustion was unavoidable. This could be considered a small celebration, but the effect of a year's battle was very obvious. Because the teleportation array could keep up, teleporting to the Nine Domains world was very convenient. Every once in a while, Shang Luo would report to Night's Sorrow about the situation. The construction of Seven Night City was going smoothly. Now that the main city was completed, they had begun to construct the subsidiary districts such as the Exchange Street. Night Sorrow's advice to Shang Luo was that they had to finish building a part of the city. As for the living quarters, they could take their time. There weren't that many people going to the Nine Regions world right now, and they wouldn't be able to use a city that was too big. While everyone was resting, Night Sorrow continued his investigation. Due to his speed and his powerful soul power, Night Sorrow's investigation speed was relatively fast. Night Sorrow told everyone to rest. He didn't rest because he wanted to catch up on the progress of his scouting. That way, he would be able to scout at the front of the team every day. After resting for half a month, the Nine Domain World team continued to advance in a fan-shaped formation. The Nine Domain World had opened a path towards the center of the evil world. That way, after killing the evil world's forces, the world source energy would appear. If the world source energy was destroyed, the threat of the evil world would disappear, and the calamity would be over. Night Sorrow's ability to link up battle skills was becoming stronger and stronger. He had become more proficient in using the three types of energy, and he was able to link up battle skills whenever he attacked. Night Sorrow's battle skills had become more proficient, and so had the others. Fighting was the best way to train one's strength. This was what Night Sorrow felt the most gratified about. While resolving the crisis, the Nine Domain World's cultivators had become stronger. Night Sorrow didn't feel helpless about those who died in battle. After all, this was fate, and he could only do so much for now. As more and more of the evil world's creatures were killed, the pressure on the Nine Domain World became less and less. Night Sorrow wasn't in a hurry. Stabilizing and reducing losses was the most important thing. After chatting with his family for a day, Night Sorrow once again began his investigation. After traveling over 20,000 li, Night Sorrow was surrounded. That's right, he was surrounded. It was a team led by a woman in red. The woman in red was a king, a one-star king. The people she led were all Saint Kings. After blocking Night Sorrow, the group of players began to surround and kill Night Sorrow. Yongf Jijip watch for free. As the woman waved her long sword, the Thunder Monarch sword Chi, which contained black flames and thunder energy, sliced towards Yi Sorrow. The will of space was added to his protective barrier. He dodged the attack of the red-clothed woman and attacked her subordinates. Night Sorrow's speed was his advantage. The red-clothed woman's speed was very fast, but there was still a gap between her and Night Sorrow. She could only chase after Night Sorrow. While moving quickly, Night Sorrow moved quickly and continuously killed the people led by the red-clothed woman. A quarter of an hour later, only the woman in red was left. Yi Chang had expended a lot of energy in battle, but so did the woman. She had been madly attacking Yi Chang with sword Qi. Although she had missed, she had still expended a lot of energy. After killing all of the red-clothed woman's subordinates, Night Sorrow's next target was the red-clothed woman. With the will of space and the space law's innate bloodline protective barrier, Night Sorrow's speed reached an extreme. He constantly attacked with the space rend. However, the woman was very strong. She was even stronger than the two-star King Yan Qingfeng that Night Sorrow had met. This was because the woman had a movement technique. Her body was very agile. In addition, her attacks also contained energy techniques. Night Sorrow had never seen the red-clothed woman's technique before. It was a slippery stickiness. When Night Sorrow attacked her sword, her energy was able to stick to Night Sorrow's violent energy. She was also able to deflect it. "Who are you?" Night Sorrow asked as he fought. "Red-clothed." The red-clothed woman threw out two words. "Your existence is to attack the 9-domain world." Night Sorrow asked as he attacked with the space rend. "My existence is to fight. I will kill the invaders and then destroy your world," the red-clothed woman said coldly. "Then I'll have to kill you first." Night Sorrow growled. He used the space rend and attacked the red-clothed woman. This woman was too difficult to deal with. Night Sorrow had no choice but to use his ultimate move. With the support of the will of space and the space law, Night Sorrow's space rend reached a certain level of speed. The red-clothed woman dodged the space rend attack. However, she was met with Night Sorrow's space-twisting dragon kill. Following a muffled sound, the red-clothed woman, who could no longer dodge the space rend, was bombarded by Night Sorrow's violent attack. She was sent flying. At this time, Night Sorrow's soul-extinguishing slash was activated. He directly attacked the red-clothed woman. A threat. Night Sorrow knew that the red-clothed woman was a big threat. He had to get rid of her. Otherwise, the other teams would be wiped out. Chapter 1071. Red Spectre's body had been sent flying by Night Sorrow. Of course, she couldn't dodge Night Sorrow's soul destruction slash. The crescent moon slashed directly into her spirit sea. At that moment, a dark purple soul power appeared in Red Spectre's spirit sea. It wrapped around Night Sorrow's soul destruction slash. But Night Sorrow's soul destruction slash was not so easy to block. It kept vibrating and attacking Red Spectre's spirit sea. While Red Spectre's soul power was blocking Night Sorrow's soul destruction slash, Night Sorrow rushed forward and stabbed Red Spectre's head. When Sky Splitter was about to reach Red Coat's forehead, Night Sorrow suddenly changed his mind. Sky Splitter paused for a moment before two reverberations broke Redcoat's arms. Then, he sent his void true chi into Redcoat's dantian, which had no power to resist, to control Redcoat's true chi. What the Nine Zones world lacked was powerful cultivators. If he could subdue Red Spectre, it would be a huge help. It could change the situation. After restraining Red Spectre's combat power, Night Sorrow's soul destruction / continued to attack Red Spectre's spirit sea. Red Spectre was in full defense, while Night Sorrow was in full attack. The two of them entered a war of attrition. Night Sorrow's soul destruction / was very condensed. Red Spectre's soul power could not block it. A moment later, it rushed to Red Spectre's spirit sea. When Red Spectre gave up and waited for death, Night Sorrow's soul destruction / hit her spirit sea. When Red Spectre's spirit sea was defenseless, Night Sorrow's soul power entered Red Spectre's spirit sea. It was a success. Night Sorrow knew that he had Red Spectre under control, but subduing her would be very difficult. After all, Red Spectre was king. Damn it! What did you do to me? After everything calmed down, Red Spectre roared at Night Sorrow. I didn't do anything. I just took control of your soul orb. In the future, you'll have to fight for me. Night Sorrow looked at Red Shirt and stated his goal. Impossible. Red Dress stared at Night Sorrow with bloodshot eyes. It was clear that she was furious. It's not up to you to decide whether it's possible or not. It depends on the facts. Night Sorrow then shook the soul power he had left in the red cloth pearl. This time, Night Sorrow's tremor caused Redcoat to let out a miserable cry. Night Sorrow looked at Redcoat and said, "What I'm doing might be immoral, but for the sake of my homeland and the people of the Nine Regions world, I'm willing to accept any blame. Your world can't win. You can't win. Do you know that?" Red Shirt shouted at Night Sorrow hysterically. "I am confident that I can win, so no matter how difficult it is, I will fight on," Night Sorrow said. "I'm just a commander. There are a few more commanders like me in the evil spirit world. The most important one is the Evil Spirit King. The Evil Spirit King is invincible." Red Shirt looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Invincible? There is no invincible opponent in this world. As long as you have confidence, there is nothing you can't do," Night Sorrow said. "The evil spirit world is connected to the evil spirit abyss. The Evil Spirit King is the master of the evil spirit abyss and the ruler of the evil spirit world. You will lose without a doubt. The evil spirit world will definitely destroy your world." Red Shirt looked at Night Sorrow and said something that Night Sorrow didn't know. Narrowing his eyes, Night Sorrow used the soul power he had left in the red cloth pearl to search Red Shirt's memories. As he searched, Night Sorrow learned more. The evil spirit world that the people of the Nine Regions world called the evil spirit world was actually called the evil spirit world. All life was born from energy and then given flesh and blood and intelligence by the heavenly Tao. Red Shirt's memories were very short. It was less than 3 years of memories. In other words, she had only been sentient for 3 years. Look, he's right. P. Edition chapter. However, the Evil Spirit King was not. It existed before Red Shirt, but Red Shirt did not know exactly how old it was and how strong it was. There were 9 commanders in the evil spirit world who were at the same level as Red Shirt. Red Shirt's cultivation was low, but her battle strength was in the middle of the 9 commanders. Reaching out to grab Red Shirt, Night Sorrow returned to the camp. Ignoring everyone's shock, Night Sorrow brought Red Shirt into his tent. "Who is she?" Sikong Chuyu asked. Night Sorrow waved his hand at Sikong Chuyu and then looked at Red Shirt. "I'll talk to you now. You have intelligence and can distinguish things better than other life forms. Your God Pearl is controlled, so you have no power to speak of. When I tortured you, you could hold on for a while, but in the end, you still gave in. It was a painful process. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Red Shirt looked at Night Sorrow and did not refute because Night Sorrow was telling the truth. Then let's talk about what you'll have to pay and what you'll get in return. If you submit, you'll fight alongside us. What I can promise is that you won't be cannon fodder. After we win the 9 Regions world, as long as you don't harm the 9 Regions world, I won't ask you anything, Night Sorrow said to Red Robe. Victory for the 9 Regions world. What power does the 9 Regions world have to win? I know the power of the 9 Regions world. In every commander's mind, there is information about the 9 Regions world from the heavens. There is only one half-step king. How can you win? Red Shirt looked at Night Sorrow and said, although you are a being of the heavens, you know a little about cultivators. I have cultivated for more than 100 years and reached the half-step king in just over 100 years. I have comprehended the will of space and time. As long as I enter the king realm, I have a chance of winning. Night Sorrow said and showed his 2 types of will to Red Shirt. One with 90% will and the other with 70% will. Both of you have a chance of entering the king realm. Red Shirt looked at Night Sorrow and said, I'm talking to you because I don't want our relationship to be strained. I have plenty of tricks up my sleeve. For the 9 domains world, I'm willing to do anything despicable. You have to understand this. You can choose whether to submit or not. To me, the only difference is the process. The result is the same, and the result is the same for you. It's just that there will be more embarrassing and unbearable experiences, Night Sorrow said to Red Coat. Then what do you say? Red Shirt looked at Night Sorrow and said, of course. As long as you fight for the 9 Regions world, after this war, as long as you do not threaten the 9 Regions world, I will not ask you anything. Night Sorrow nodded. Deal. Let's swear an oath to the heavens. Red Shirt exhaled and said. Night Sorrow reached out his right hand and swore an oath to the heavens. Red Shirt did the same. Hearing Red Shirt's heavenly Tao oath, Yishang let out a sigh of relief. Although he knew that Red Shirt was a heavenly Tao life form and was the most rational and would make the most appropriate decision, Yishang was still worried that Red Shirt would not submit. Now that he had subdued Red Shirt, he felt a lot more at ease. What do you think of this war? Night Sorrow asked. Currently, we can only fight in the outer area. The core area is not good enough. We are not strong enough. Among the commanders, there are 3 that we cannot defeat. If we fight them head-on, we will only increase our casualties. Chapter 1072. In other words, we're not strong enough. Night Sorrow slapped his forehead. That's right. The 3 commanders are mid-level monarchs. We definitely won't be able to defeat them, Blood Robes expressed his opinion. I understand, but we still have to kill. If we don't destroy the evil spirit world, the evil spirit world will have a strong impact on the 9-domain world. We have to kill until the evil spirit world can't break through the 9-domain world. Only then can we fight steadily. Now, let's go and subdue the other low-level king commanders, Night Sorrow said. Looking at Yishang, Red Coat said, among the 9 commanders, there is one more who is like me. There is a chance that he will be subdued by you, but the others are not. Looking at Yishang, Red Coat's words made Yishang's heart turn cold. Night Sorrow originally planned to use the same method he used to subdue Red Robe to deal with the other commanders. But now, Red Robe's words made his plan fall through. Among the 9 commanders, 7 of them are dark energy beings. Without the divine orb, we can't control them. The other one is Lawning. She's in the same situation as me, Blood Robe explained to Night Sorrow. I understand. Let's hurry up and deal with Lawning first. Then, we'll try to eliminate the other commanders. After that, we'll rest. Night Sorrow thought for a while and made a decision. Then I can take you to Lawning. I know where the other commanders are, but they don't stay in the same place. It's hard to say if we can find them, Red Robe said. You rest first. Once you're done, we'll set off, Night Sorrow said to Red Robe. Night Sorrow arranged for Red Robe to stay in Aoi's tent. Then, he went to the command tent. In the command tent, a group of people were talking. Because they were too deep and their opponents were too strong, most of them were injured. Commander, did you just bring back a king? Zhu Jiuyun asked. Yes, I just convinced her. She's willing to work for our 9-domain world. In addition, I also found out some information about the evil world. This world is called the Evil Spirit World. Other than the strongest evil spirit king, there are also 9 kings. We can't fight them head-on. Night Sorrow sighed. Originally, Night Sorrow had thought that the Evil Spirit World and the 9-domain world strength were on par, but now, that was not the case. The Evil Spirit World was much stronger than the 9-domain world. Does the commander have any ideas? Tai Shu Yen asked. I have some ideas. There aren't many craters left in the area we cleared. Some small teams can go back and continue killing. High-level saints and saint kings can stay behind. I'll lead a team to kill them in the future. Night Sorrow decided to take the elite route. This way, killing enemies might be slower, but it was definitely safer. That's good too. Long Xianqing nodded. I'll be in charge here. City Lord Lu Qin will be in charge of the team we're going to kill. Saint King Zhu will be in charge of the rescue. We can't afford to make any mistakes, Night Sorrow said. I'll still fight with you. After all, I can also increase my strength, Zhu Jiuyun said. Rescue is very important. A successful rescue can save many elites of our 9-domain world. We can't afford to make any mistakes. I'll be fine, Night Sorrow said. He understood that Zhu Jiuyun was worried about his safety. After the meeting, Night Sorrow encountered a new problem. Lu Qin arranged for people to retreat, but Yi Wuyo, Yu Qing, and his 3 wives were unwilling to leave. They wanted to fight with Night Sorrow. Bring us along. We want to live and die together, Sikong Chuyu said as she looked at Night Sorrow. Okay, we'll live and die together. Night Sorrow stepped forward and pulled Sikong Chuyu, whose beautiful face was filled with determination, into his embrace. After that, Night Sorrow gave Yang Lei and Aoi each a hug. Along the way, Night Sorrow felt that he had not let down anyone. He had not let down the 9-domain world, he had not let down the entire world. However, he felt that he had let down the women by his side. He had not given them a single day of peace. Son, you're the best. There won't be any problems, Yu Qing said. Father, you're the leader of the Night Moon Empire. Why don't you come with us? Night Sorrow looked at Yi Wuyo and said. Ha! There are some things that you don't know. Right now, a lot of Night Moon's matters are being handled by your sister. Later on, the position of ruler will be passed to her, Yi Wuyo said with a smile. Night Sorrow nodded. This time, Yi Nianxiao had been with Lu Qin the entire time. She had helped Lu Qin mobilize and control the movements of the troops. She was very good at controlling the overall situation. Right now, she had already led the second echelon of troops to retreat with Lu Qin. Then I support father and mother's decision. We'll go out and resolve some of the problems that can be resolved, Night Sorrow said. Night Sorrow did not immediately arrange for them to go out because Xian Wenxiu and Yi Tian were injured. Hong Yi also needed to rest. Aren't you in a hurry? Hong Yi asked after hearing Night Sorrow's arrangements. No hurry. There's still time. Even if we stop fighting right now, my clone can control the 9 domain sources to suppress the evil spirit realm for 5 years. If we make some achievements, this time will be extended, Night Sorrow said. So what if it's extended? It still won't resolve the fundamental problem. Hongyi did not want Night Sorrow to fail. She did not want the 9 domain world to fail. She still needed freedom. Fundamental problem. This time is enough for me to rush to the king's realm. Night Sorrow clenched his fist and said. Actually, in Night Sorrow's heart, those mid-level king realm commanders were not scary. The problem was the evil spirit king whose strength even Hongyi did not know. Are you that confident? Hongyi looked at Night Sorrow and asked. I believe in myself. Night Sorrow nodded. Right now, I can only choose to believe in you. Hongyi had no other choice now because she and Night Sorrow, as well as the 9 domain world, were bound together for good or ill. Believe in me. One day, you will be glad for today's decision. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Z main. Version. Night Sorrow was very confident in himself. He had comprehended 70% of the will of time in a single moment of enlightenment. He was still in the process of comprehending it and could enter the king's realm at any time. He also knew that if his original body did not comprehend it, it would not be as stable as it was now. In other words, his original body was in the process of reaping the benefits. As for when the benefits would turn into strength, he would have to wait. Seeing Night Sorrow enter the tent, Hongyi was a little stunned. Although she had only been sentient for a short time, she still had some common sense. Don't be surprised. Night Sorrow has never disappointed anyone. Never, Yang Lei said to Hongyi. After entering the tent, Night Sorrow brewed a pot of tea. It was heart-cleansing tea. Soul-nurturing tea was good tea, but Night Sorrow did not want to waste it. Soul-nurturing tea was also effective for his doppelganger. It could stabilize the soul, but it could not increase its level. Because his original body did not increase, he only drank it once with Lord Xian Tian and did not use it again. He wanted to save it for his original body. Night Sorrow, don't feel pressured. There is nothing that cannot be solved. There are always more solutions than difficulties. Wu Lingfei entered Night Sorrow's tent. Okay, I understand. I don't feel pressured now. Night Sorrow nodded. Chapter 1073. Actually, everyone wants to share your burden, but we don't have the ability to. Wu Lingfei looked apologetic. Auntie Fei, be careful in the future. I don't want to see you injured again, Night Sorrow said to Wu Lingfei. Auntie Fei understands. Don't worry. We'll be fighting right under your nose, so you don't have to worry, Wu Lingfei said with a smile. Then I'm relieved. Night Sorrow nodded. In Night Sorrow's heart, Wu Lingfei was as important as family. He didn't want her to be in any danger. Night Sorrow drank tea while everyone was cultivating. Before his cultivation level increased, there was no room for improvement. However, it wasn't the same for the others. After intense battles, there was a lot of room for improvement. Night Sorrow gave everyone 5 days to rest. Then, he put everyone into the dragon cauldron that Sikong Chuyu had returned to him. Then, he took Red and flew into the depths of the evil spirit world. On the way, Night Sorrow often attacked. When he saw evil beings above the Saint Realm, he would kill them. Killing some Saint Realm beings would damage the evil spirit world's origin, and the impact on the 9 domains world would be much smaller. After traveling for half a month, Red Dress told Night Sorrow that they had entered an area led by a man called Iron Marquis. Iron Marquis was a 2-star king, but his battle strength was about the same as hers. Knight Sorrow was confident in this situation. As long as he wasn't much stronger than Red Dress, he would be able to fight. After searching for 4 days, Knight Sorrow found Iron Marquis wearing cold iron armor. Red Dress, why are you with someone from another world? Have you become a traitor of the evil spirit world? Iron Marquis, who was wearing cold iron armor and holding iron, shouted at Red Dress. Don't make it sound so bad. Those who win are kings and those who lose are thieves. I've lost, Red Shirt said. Then all of you can die. Iron Marquis waved his hand, and the Saint King team behind him charged at Knight Sorrow. His target was Red Dress, so he didn't care about Knight Sorrow at all. Be careful. Everyone, kill. Knight Sorrow waved his left arm and released everyone from the dragon cauldron. Then, he used Cut to block Iron Marquis' path to attack Redcoat. He then used Space Twisting Dragon Kill to attack Redcoat. Bang! With a muffled sound, Marquis Tai was blasted back by Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow also retreated a distance. Even with Knight Sorrow's Will of Time and Time Law support, Marquis Tai's attack was still very strong. In addition, Knight Sorrow's attack was somewhat hasty. At that moment, the Red Spectre swung his long sword and arrived beside Knight Sorrow. Redcoat, thank you very much. However, this is my battle. If I can't take him down, I won't be able to bring the 9-domain world to victory. Help me destroy the other minions. Knight Sorrow extended his left arm to block Redcoat. Redcoat looked at Knight Sorrow, and her heart wavered. She was somewhat impressed by Knight Sorrow. At this moment, Knight Sorrow could have let her charge at the front. Today, all of you will die. Iron Marquis roared and swung his iron towards Knight Sorrow. None of us will die. The one who will die is you. Knight Sorrow waved his space-twisting dragon and used Desolation Absolute Kill. Iron Marquis wasn't afraid of Knight Sorrow, who was a half-step king. The iron in his hand, or rather, the frost iron, was used to attack Knight Sorrow. As the two weapons approached, the image of time flowing appeared on Knight Sorrow's space-twisting dragon. With the Will of Time and Time Law support, the time acceleration effect was very powerful. Iron Marquis' frost iron lost a portion of its energy. It was about the same as Knight Sorrow's attack. The two weapons clashed, and the two separated again. However, this time, Iron Marquis retreated far away. After repelling Iron Marquis, Knight Sorrow's protective shield slashed forward and caught up to Iron Marquis. He swung his space-twisting dragon again. Iron Marquis stared and swung his frost iron towards Knight Sorrow's space-twisting dragon. Following an explosion, Iron Marquis' frost iron was knocked back. At this moment, Knight Sorrow and Iron Marquis' weapons had exhausted their energy. However, Knight Sorrow's power of desolation followed up and used Shockwave. At this moment, Iron Marquis' energy had been exhausted. Before he could use his new energy, he couldn't withstand Knight Sorrow's attack. He was sent flying by Knight Sorrow's powerful shockwave. His body was trembling non-stop. At this moment, Knight Sorrow used Space-Twisting Dragon and slashed towards Iron Marquis. With the support of the Will of Space and Space Law, the Space-Twisting Dragon was extremely fast. It arrived in front of Iron Marquis in an instant. Iron Marquis' eyes were about to pop out. He roared and the Will of Wind burst forth. He used the wind energy to block in front of him. Iron Marquis' energy blocked the space and didn't get cut in half. However, his body was still sent flying and he vomited blood. He was severely injured. Soul Extinguishing Slash. When Iron Marquis' blood and chi were shaken and his condition was declining, Knight Sorrow used his killer move. Hong Yi had said that other than the other commander, Lan Ning, the other commanders couldn't be subdued. Therefore, Knight Sorrow used his killer move. The crescent blade of soul extinguishing / cut into Iron Marquis's spirit sea. When Iron Marquis's mind was in a daze, Night Sorrow swung his space-twisting dragon. The space-twisting dragon sliced Iron Marquis's head in half. Although there were no divine pearls, Iron Marquis's head was cut in half and his spirit sea was cut. He couldn't be more dead. Picking up Iron Marquis's frost iron, he looked at it and found that it was a saint artifact. Looking around, Night Sorrow saw that the battle was still going on. However, he didn't plan to interfere. Everyone needed to train. As long as there was no danger to their lives, he wouldn't care. The only one who was legitimate. The others were pirated. After Hong Yi killed the strongest Saint King, Night Sorrow stopped her from continuing to attack. Watch them. Don't get severely injured. Don't get killed. Hong Yi nodded. At this moment, she was very impressed with Night Sorrow. Iron Marquis, a 2-star king, was killed by Night Sorrow in a short moment. It was faster than her killing a peak stage Saint King. There were very few Saint Kings in the 9 regions world. Their levels were also low. However, their ability to fight together was strong. Therefore, there wasn't much danger. After the battle ended, Night Sorrow nodded with satisfaction. He was quite satisfied with the results of the battle. Everyone, enter the Dragon Cauldron to recuperate. Let's hurry to the next destination. Night Sorrow nodded to everyone. Then, he put everyone into the Dragon Cauldron. Let's move horizontally. The next commander of the territory should be Copper Arm. He's about the same as Iron Marquis. We can still kill him. After dealing with Copper Arm, we'll be close to Lan Ying's territory, Hong Yi said to Night Sorrow. Okay, we'll deal with all the commanders that we can. Then, we'll return to the 9 regions world, Night Sorrow said. Night Sorrow felt that killing half of the king-level evil spirits of the evil spirit world would cause great damage to the origin of the evil spirit world. The impact of the evil spirit world on the 9 regions world would be less. It would be more stable. Hong Yi, after we subdue Lan Ying, do you think the 3 of us can kill the mid-level king commander? Night Sorrow looked at Hong Yi and asked, "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."